All right, well, welcome everyone. We are going to start today's Finance and Appropriations Committee. I appreciate everyone coming today. We have a very full schedule. We do not have a quorum right now, but we are going to act as a non-committee. We will not approve the minutes until another member comes in, but please take the time to look at the minutes now if you are here. We are going to go over our monthly financials briefly. Our treasurer is going to have a brief presentation with that, as well as a brief few points on some behavior on different pieces of our budget, just to keep the committee updated with those sort of behaviors. And then we're going to go right into our departmental budget presentations, and then we will be done. So we cannot call roll, so we'll begin.
So ready, set, go, right?
Yeah, on the monthly financials.
Okay, this is for the year-to-date February. An overview, our revenues are now running over plan. Expenditures are running under plan as they have been. On the revenue side, you can see that very close, 5.9 million over, and expenditures have reduced their under plan now to about 5 million. I believe the expenditures were about 7 million last month under plan. Let me see if that's true. More closer to 8 million under plan. So they've improved, getting closer to plan. These are actual dollars for property taxes. The good news here is that through February, advances continue to come in, then they stop them. For the end of the month, we were 8.8 million ahead. I believe I mentioned previously that half of the new levy is about 26 million that we're expecting in this first half levy, this first half collection period. We did receive the settlement, and it came in about 25 million above the plan. So we're on target there, and you'll see that in the March results. No real differences in state revenues. I think other operating is pretty much unchanged from last month, as is non-operating unchanged. So all in all, about 6 million ahead, but we'll end up closer to 30 million ahead next month. But again, that's because the plan didn't include the new levy.
I have a quick question about that, and maybe I just must have missed it on the permanent improvement piece, and where we would start to see that materialize, and what sort of the plan is for that.
And permanent improvement's a completely separate fund. It doesn't show up on this report. And so we have begun to receive the permanent improvement levy money. So we've got that in the bank. The appropriations have been set for the both the PI and the building fund. And you'll see those adjustments come to you in appropriation resolution amendments as time goes by. Oh, you did those? We did those in February. So they're already in the process. You know, you've approved that one contract for HVAC, and they're, you know, we're on roll. I can't speak to PI's levy stuff. Maurice, are you doing anything there?
We were looking at PI for this first quarter is to address buses, also technology, some technology, as well as some buildings and grounds issues, maintenance, and asphalt and concrete and those type of issues. And so we're looking at those as well. The PI is set up. We have a plan. It's very fluid. Again, but right now the initial plan was, if you recall, our original bus replacement plan was approximately 71 buses per year. But in this plan, it puts us at approximately, our average about 20 buses a year. So that first year is 18 buses, second year will be about 20, and on each year after that.
Do you think at some point we could get maybe a presentation, just sort of loosely? I know things could change, but maybe just from the Finance Committee and the public, just to sort of understand what that looks like, understand what that's going to look like through time, and how we're going to best use those dollars and how it helps us.
We can do that, but I want to also caution, be very clear about is that understand that PI is for life cycle replacement. And as we move forward, there's things that may take place that that wasn't part of that because of the life cycle didn't last as long as we expect. But definitely because of that.
Absolutely.
And at least I'm anticipating that PI money, the building fund money, all that capital is going to be part of our process to develop that capital budget not only document, but also the discussion that we plan to have. So that'll be all part and parcel with that.
Sorry for bringing us off track. I apologize.
No,
Please continue.
that's fine. I'm here all day. Try the fish. This is just a breakdown by category. Property taxes above, revenue slightly above. You know, everything's right on target through February. So that's all. You know, I'd rather be lucky than good, I guess. But we're on target. There's no surprises there. Month to date, you can see that it flows fairly closely. The January, February variances are due to the collection period and when advances come. And then, well, let me back up for a second. The state revenue variances were back there in September and October when rollback didn't come in one month, it came in the next, you know, versus last year. So that's what that, back there in September and October, that difference is. But, so the two big variances, we know what they are. But in the end, we end up at about $6 million over plan. So we're doing good. On expenditures, personnel continues to track towards being about $16 million over our original plan. That's the one extra payroll. It climbed, I think, a couple of million this month. So if you do a couple of million each month, you'll eventually get to about $16 million over plan. Non-personnel still at 7.1 under plan. I believe the change from last month, as far as if coming closer to plan is an improvement, I think we did that. Non-personnel came closer to being on plan by about 1.5 million. And that's going to be something I talk about here in a minute. No big change in community schools, nor in the non-operating. On the community school side, the latest number is $178,263,059 from the state as of the March 1 payment, and we continue to have $180 million appropriated. So it's on target to be about $2 million under plan, but it's better than the other way around. No surprises there. Just to break down of where we are over and under, Jody is here. You're getting closer.
Right. How you doing, Jody?
Monthly, you see that it tracks fairly well.
Okay. Go to switch it right now. Okay. No. You can move it. Just move your name tag and you can sit right there. Wherever you would like. Sorry about that.
It's okay. And then just a final summary. Revenue's over, expenditures under. Again, no real surprises. You know, the big expenditures, we know what personnel's doing. We watch charter schools, we're on target there. And the next conversation is about non-personnel items, and I can do about a 5 or 6 minute discussion of where we are on that and give you an idea of how we're beginning to look at it in a little bit more detail. I don't have any definitive explanations for you yet, but I thought you'd want to hear an update as to how we're approaching it. So, let me switch
Real quick,
presentations here real quick.
We just went over, since we had a long day with budget testimony, we wanted to make sure we went over the monthly financials, even though we have the quorum yet. We're waiting for people to come in. No big changes or surprises, anything like that. And then please just take a look at the minutes. And then once we get into there, we'll do a roll call and get those approved. Thanks,
Thank you.
All right. I put this together because I realized as we look at monthly variances, we're making some inferences about the numbers indicating changes in our behavior that I didn't think were necessarily on target. So I wanted to talk about the connection between behaviors and our financial numbers. So essentially, we start out with kind of some underlying assumptions. The main one being that what we plan to do behaviorally is going to be reflected in what we plan to spend. So you've heard Scott talk about aligning our budget to our goals and visions. So we've got these budgets that you'll hear about later that describe all the behaviors that they convert into dollars essentially. And then so we've got this planned budget that reflects our planned behavior. So what we actually do want to do later on is compare what we plan to do to what we actually did. So we've got to make some inference or a leap. So we know that from a financial perspective that our behavior is reflected in our expenditures. I mean, that's the expenditures are really an artifact of what we're doing. So So if our planned behavior is equal to our planned expenditures, that's our budgeting cycle, and we know that our actual behavior is reflected in our, hi there, we now have a quorum. You want me to stop?
Yeah,
Would you
oh,
like
all
me to
right.
stop?
Good to see you, Tim. See MJ? Yeah.
Yes.
Stop real quick. Real quick, just for everyone. So we started without a quorum, just to go over the monthly financials. There was no surprises or anything like that. And we have the minutes here as well. So take a look at the minutes real quick, but I'll ask the treasurer to take a roll.
Mr. Peretti?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Zeranin?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart? You have a quorum.
Excellent. All right, if we could all take just a quick moment, take a look at those minutes. Approve those. I have a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move to approve. Okay. Second.
All those in favor? Aye, same sign, no? All right, they are approved. Thank you very much. And then we will back into the non-personnel variance analysis.
What I had started here was, as we did the financials, I had indicated that you had asked specifically for a little bit more in depth of where we are on the non-personnel. Why is it running under? What can we discern from that? And as we went back, Scott and I looked at it, I became a little bit concerned that we need to understand the relationship between our planned and actual behaviors and what the numbers really indicate, so we can make the appropriate inference and know what to look for. So I'll go through this quickly. I'll just start over again. And that is that from a budgeting perspective, what we plan to do is reflected in what we plan to spend. So that's our budgeting process. And ultimately, we want to compare what we plan to do. You know, we said we're going to do X. Did we really do it? So we want to compare our planned behavior to our actual behavior. From a financial perspective, we know that our expenditures are an artifact of what we're doing. You know, when we behave and we spend money, well, actual expenditures, well, that's actually what we're doing. It should be reflective. And so if planned behavior is equal to our planned expenditures and our actual behavior is reflected in our actual expenditures, then if we ultimately compare planned expenditures to actual expenditures, that should be some comparison to planned behavior and actual behavior. That's the proxy that we're looking for. And as you can see, monthly we make that comparison, have those discussions to see how they actually align. But there's a problem with the assumption, and that is this relationship works well on an annual basis. These budgets you're going to hear are based upon annually. This is what we're going to do next year at some point in time. What we don't do is we don't have a planned behavior on a monthly basis. So we don't go to these folks and say, well, I know you said you were going to do these types of purchase services. What month is that going to occur? We just know that those activities are going to go on during the year. So we need a proxy for estimating what's going to happen month to month. And as I've said before, the best thing I have for that is last year's expenditure pattern. But there are a lot of factors that can affect that, one of which could be we do something different, but there are a lot of external things that could come along. And from my perspective, I'm more concerned annually than I am month to month, unless something dramatic happens that indicates that you're not going to survive that budget. Or on the revenue side, we're going to come in way short. All right, but those are typically large events, significant events that we would know about. So, and then we have to decide what level of detail do we go into. How much precision can we get? I had a board member once say to me, make sure the catch is worth the chase. You can drill down so far that it just doesn't give you any more value. Scott and I have talked about how, when you do a 5-year forecast and it's involving $800 million, we look at some other people's forecasts and they have it down to, $125,732, and 53 cents. And I'm like, really? Are you sure it's 53 cents out 5 years from now, that it's not 55 cents. So the precision just isn't there. So we have to, how far do we go, in the non-personnel level? Do we deal with it at the total level? Do we get down to what we call a single digit and identify, do something on purchase services, supplies, material, capital outlay in the aggregate? Or do we drill down further and get into 410s, 450s, or do we go on down into very specific object level for forecasting that month-to-month kind of behavior? And that's just my question. Since we're using a proxy, how precise do we want to be? Our plan has done it at the single digit. That's what I did. So I looked at, for instance, in the non-personnel area, I took how purchase services in the aggregate behaved, and I spread the budget that way. But what we actually find out is that the individual line items may or may not behave that way. Scott and I have looked at several different metrics we might use. Certainly a dollar variance from plan is what we're using right now. Maybe a percent variance from plan would be another metric that we could use to identify areas we want to delve into deeper. And then we have to have some issues about how much do we really spend of our budgeted amount. Is it 100% always? Is it a portion of that? Should we in essence plan for underspending the budget, and that would change the variances? Or do you use 100% of your budget is going to be expended, know that if you're running short, that's indicative that you're not going to spend your whole budget? So there, we've kind of wrestled with all of those. And we actually, in our plan, assume that we're going to spend 100%, and you then get under budget metrics that may not really be indicative of behavioral changes. And we started to do this with all the data, comparing to prior year percent of total expenditures. We've used 100% as the base. Prior year, we typically, like I said, look for large purchases to watch for to see when they're coming in as an explanation, and then look to see if there's reallocation of budgets as an indication that something has changed versus what we planned on doing. Just some other issues. I want to go quickly, but in the end, we just continue to ask questions and try and look at things that were planned that we don't do, things that we do that we didn't plan on, and part of that will fall out of this planned expenditures to actual expenditures comparison. The idea here, though, is that if you understand the building blocks of where we got the plan, then you understand whether or not you can make a behavioral inference. So we have the budget, the behavioral plan, we align that to actual dollars, we then measure our expenditures, we compare to the plan, and at the top is where we're starting to make these inferences. And how accurate isn't the word, applicable isn't the word, I can't come up with it. How appropriate are those inferences? How true are they? And that's the real question. So that's what I wanted to share with you from that perspective. And you have a document, and if I flip over real quick, I could show you what it looks like. Actually, I don't. That's okay. You have this document. I don't think I brought that along. Shoot. Yeah, I did. Thank goodness for flash drives. And this is just an update. I'm not done. We're not done yet, but I wanted to show you what we're looking at and what some of the things are falling out. In this analysis, the document starts off with just a graph of the FY16 actuals, which are the blue line, month to month. And this is just for purchase services in total, all 400s. And then we're FY17 actuals running. So you can see already we're not behaving the same way, and that's why we're getting these variance differences. We went in and looked at the largest contributors to 400s, like the top 5 items, top 3 to 5 items, because that's where the bulk of the money is, to see what's going on. So I have 410 here. The second graph is a comparison of, for just 410.
And what is 410 again? 410
is professional services,
okay.
Professional and technical services. It is a comparison here between the orange line is all 400s, their month-to-month spending pattern, and what 410s look like. So you can see that using last year as a proxy for 410 is probably not that good. So using the aggregate number didn't do this line much justice. The next one I've got to walk you through because it's a little bit more. We start kind of on the right-hand side with the gold line. This is taking the FY17 budget and spreading it using the total purchase services spending pattern. So that yellow line shape looks exactly like the shape of the all 400s.
16, yeah.
16 expenditures. So using the plan, but using just 410 as your base number, that's how it would spread. I then compare that to the gray line, which is this FY16 actual, and that's kind of what you saw before. It's much more sawtooth than what the 400s would give you. But if I take the 17 budget and I spread it using the 410 monthly percentages, then you get the blue line. So the blue line and gray line shadow each other. They're separated because we budgeted more in 410 this year than we did last year. There's an actual dollar amount difference, but they shadow each other. They're the same monthly percent of total being expended. And then we get to the orange line. So the question, which is the actual. So the question is, does the actual, do you want to compare that to the blue line, which was spread using the actual 410 percentages, or do you want to compare it to the gold line, the yellow line, which was spread based upon all 400s? So you see, you're going to get a whole different set of monthly variances. I actually give that to you on the next one, so you can see that sometimes our comparison understates or sometimes it overstates the variance. But if you look at it, the last of the, I think there are 5 or 6 graphs, this is year-to-date variance. And as I can clearly see, but the gold line is what we're currently comparing. And you can see that it comes up through February at about 1.56 million under plan. But if we had spread it differently, we'd only be 0.68, we'd 680,000 under plan. So of that variance you saw in the monthly financials for non-personnel of 7.1 million under plan, I can tell you that 1 million of it's because this wasn't planned, this wasn't put in the plan properly. And these are the things we're looking at. I don't have any more slides because I wanted to fly through this. What you have are 2 more objects, 2 more contributors, large contributors to the 400 series, 451, which is electricity, and 420, which is property services. Both of these work out a little bit differently. If you look on page 5, the second graph on page 5, you'll see that our comparison yields about to when we use the total 400s, about 100,000 under plan. If we had spread it according to the true 451 spread, we'd be about 220,000 under plan. So we're very, very close. So this one, I looked at it and I went, well, it's a large dollar amount, but we spread it pretty close. Even if I had refined it, the catch wouldn't have been worth the chase here. It wouldn't be that much different. And the same pretty much holds for 420, which is pages 6 and 7. While it's a little bit more erratic than electrical compared to the spread using total, in the end, by the time you get 7 or 8 months into the year, you're on top of it. So the catch isn't worth the chase there either. I got, I think, 1 more 400 to do, and I'm doing 500s just to see if anything jumps out. But I think it's just a timing. This year's just not behaviorally. We're not doing anything different in terms of service providing. You know, that's the other thing. The real question is, are we having are we not providing the service that we should? Do we have what was the phrase I used before? It was a really good phrase about service delivery. Do we have service delivery issues? The answer is no. The 3 people sitting over here would be getting phone calls, and he would be getting a phone call, and the folks back here would be if we had a service delivery issue. It's just that things aren't being spent as rapidly, perhaps, as they were last year.
Now, were we sort of in the same position last year as non-personnel as well? So do you think this is something as, sort of as we were sort of trying to nail down what was going on with the charter schools, you were waiting for some time to have some true numbers, and now you're starting to see it. Are you seeing sort of the same thing with this, and we just overshot it?
Well, I think we're probably going to end up having to go back and look at what's budgeted and what's spent. And there's a whole nother assumption in how this works relative to what we call carry forwards. That's a whole nother discussion. But just think of it this way. We assume that what's encumbered and carried forward from last year equals what is encumbered and carried forward at the end of this year into the next year. So long as those two are equal on a cash expenditure basis, you can just use your budget. If there's a variance there, if you don't encumber and spend as much in the next year, then you're going to get more expenditures in one year, and you'll have a fiscal year shift. And we've not done that analysis yet, and that could be part of it. But you're right. The question is, are we budgeting and then not spending in general? Which, does that mean, well, we should budget less? I don't know. Yeah, you really have to get down into you have to start talking about what we encumber, what we make obligations for, and how that timing affects the cash expenditures in any one given year. That's going to take some more time to look at. But I just wanted to give you an update. These are the things that Scott and I are looking at. We look at it in tables, we look at it in graphs, and we don't have it's like, we said we're going to teach, I always use third grade, I don't know why, but I always say, well, we said we're going to teach third grade. Well, we're teaching third grade, okay? It's not like we have a service delivery issue. And so we're trying to let the numbers give us some indication that something's different, and it could just be that we have a pattern of not spending all of our budgets.
And that's, like, to the latter point, I think it's, like, I'm comfortable that it isn't a wild difference, and it seems like it's much more timing. So, that's why I was concerned is, in public budgeting thought, if there are folks that maybe, well, okay, we're going to put X in the budget, but then we're really not going to buy pencils. And I use that as
Right, exactly.
It appears that we're buying the pencils, we don't need them at the same times as we thought we might.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure we've got the pencils when we need them.
Do we got the pencils when we need them? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That'll be our purchasing director.
I make that as just the analogy, but that was.
And we got them at a discount, too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I know. We buy in bulk, so.
And one of the things I want to, as we look at this, and I want to be able to look at it and analyze it, but what I don't want to get into a situation where you say, well, typically we only spend 93% of our budgets, so why don't we just cut everything by 7%? And then behaviorally, you know what happens?
Yeah.
You get into the use it or lose it kind of, and we're fighting against that because Scott has spent, where are we, at least 3 years doing this modified zero-based budget process, and we want to be true to this is your plan, this is your budget for that, we'll stay with that and not penalize you if what if we're more efficient, and we don't want to be penalized the next year. So we don't want to get in that use it or lose it mentality. We're not there, we don't want to go there, we've avoided that, and we want to be true to this, matching our behaviors with our budget and aligning it with the mission and goals and whatnot. Yes, sir.
This all seems fine, but the service delivery assumption, that if nobody's calling, service delivery is constant and there's no problems, there just seems like there's more opportunity for refinement relative to activity, so number of students, or so how much flexing is going on, are we educating more or less? Are we hitting other performance quality goals that are at a more refined level that you'd really want to balance those? Because it just feels like could be a lot of volatility around service delivery that that you got to be aware of, that there may be more things going on there.
And you're out of my lane and into somebody else's lane.
Right.
Because there's always, I can't speak to all the things we want to do educationally that running under budget might allow midstream. I'm not there yet.
Well, but that,
Right.
To Tim's point, no, well, I think that it's, you know, I think that's probably more in what Scott is doing in terms of, because if we're missing that point, then we get to
A
the
balanced
user losing
scorecard that shows
mentality.
that these
Yeah,
are all
yeah.
in line, so.
So I think is, you know, were there any takeaways for Scott, were there any takeaways for you from this analysis?
I think there's things on the horizon that we're working on internally that are going to help pull this together even better. I think there's some things that we have ideas of what we'd like to do, but financially we struggle that from a staffing resource piece, and I'm looking at that from my office. Just there's some ideas we have, and just trying to figure out how we can structure that, because you know the folks in the department, they're running their shop, but they don't have budget analysts as part of their operations doing this piece, and there's really just two of us doing this. So we're trying to figure out how we can stretch ourselves thinner than we are to really get into that sort of detail. And as we do the work with Dr. Stanford, talking about our district improvement plans and tying those with metrics and looking at updates, it's all coming together at the right time.
Good.
My 36 and a half minutes are up.
Do we have any more questions on this piece that we have in front of us right now? Thank you, Stan.
Sure. Scott and I are going to switch seats so he can run the machine.
Machine.
More charts next time. It was nice, it was good. Stay.
Should we pull Tim over here and put somebody in the
People are
hot
going to
seat?
come and when they come up, their individual areas.
Can I move that? I just think, so we can see them.
I mean,
Oh,
move
yeah.
over here?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
wondering if Tim came over here, then they could sit
Absolutely.
over by John and,
Could you text me when my word comes up?
Oh, yes, okay.
It's always good to sit next to him.
So I'll kind of just start off here, and I will say, piggybacking on what Stan had mentioned, that this is the third budget that I've been involved with since I've been here. There aren't words that I can really use to express how far we've come. Wow is it. Because when I look back in the first time we went through this new budget process, looking at it on just a one-year basis, we had over 38 hours of public presentation. We had 2 full days devoted to internal budget presentations. We've moved from a one-year budget to a 5-year operating budget. I was nervous and scared before school started this year, because I remember when David called me and said, hey, can you send us FY 2018 budget spreadsheets? The FY17 school year hadn't even started yet. So the kids aren't here yet. And way outside my comfort zone, outside my box, as I thought, kids aren't here yet and you're already thinking about next year's budget. Sweat was kicking in at that point. So folks have started working on this very, very early on. This year we did our internal budget hearings. They went like clockwork, and I think you will see that here today. We went from 3 years ago taking 2 full days of budget presentations and hours of board presentations. It was difficult. We got through it last Friday in 2 hours, and we nailed it. So the folks are doing absolutely amazing work. Everybody here, the folks aren't even in this room that were involved.
all right.
Awesome work. So, and Dr. Good said, well, how did this happen? What's going? I said, we've got consistency in our leadership. Folks are understanding and owning. Each and every year, it's getting better. So we're getting there, and we're going to keep improving on it, even if we have minor glitches along the way. Oh,
Absolutely.
I won't
looking at the wrong one.
here. No, sorry.
Okay. And a big thank you too, where is Scott? Scott Barner made this presentation look a lot more attractive than the finance people can, so I really want to thank the communications department for making this look better than I could have ever have done. So thank you, Scott. Here, obviously, we have the goals, and I'll kind of go through this quickly just so we can get into the meat of the presentation. The district goals are here. As Stan mentioned in his piece, the whole thing has always been the thing that I wanted to do from when we started this budget transformation was it's all about alignment. It's all about aligning our resources to our district goals, and that's what we're doing. The things that we factor in, we're reviewing current programs, we're identifying enhancements, adjustments, reductions, aligning those to goals, prioritizing. We're looking at return on investment. Obviously, we've got a state budget that's going on and that process, and we're looking at that as well as additional fiscal impacts to our
Hey,
finances.
Scott,
Oh, yes,
before
ma'am.
you go off that slide, what about federal?
Yeah, federal is definitely having an impact because there's things on the
It
federal
just
level.
wasn't a bullet.
No, well, I guess we should.
We might pick a different word than that.
That's something we want to add, yeah.
Yes.
But there are impacts with that. And we're looking at now is that the state plan that we submit to the feds, typically in February, it was supposed to be April, and now we're talking September. There's a whole lot of change
Yeah.
coming down the pipe for
I
us.
think there's change. I just think in this planning, there's change, and there are services, or, you know, there are academic and other services, and I think of food services, for example. You know, like, we still have to deliver in the classroom, but we might not have those resources.
Right.
Will that be reflected here, or will that be a, you know, kind of contingency planning?
There could be, because there are things in here, as we talk about changes at the federal level, one of the things that we're hearing folks talk about is our community eligibility provision program.
Right.
That's out there. We know that had a major impact on us in the dollars that were deducted from our funds for community schools when we switched to the program. So if that goes away, that could have an impact on what those community school deductions are. So we're going to have to continue to monitor that. And as we get through that process, if things change for the good or the bad, obviously we'd have to come back and make accommodations for that. But it's a daily thing that we're looking at and tracking.
And so we'll keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously with the appropriations resolution, just what we've changed to, that from the old days of the one-page budget document by fund level, everything is still fund level except the general fund. We do break down the personnel, salaries, wages, fringe benefits, and then all of the school building and departments are approved from a non-personnel standpoint at the OPU level. The non-personnel budgets, and I remember the first time we used a version of this, the computer in the bottom right-hand corner, Mary Jo, I remember you commented about that. And I still laugh because I can tell you that computer exists at ACOL Kenwood because that's the only computer that we have that runs the old Oregon Trail program, if anyone remembers that one. So I still, that one's stuck and I can't get rid of that. I can't get rid of that from my
Suggest that
slide.
it was like a Russian computer.
But we have one. We have on the old floppy drive still, and I can't. I laugh every time I see the slides.
That's Mike's computer.
So what we'll do here, the flow for the presentations is David Baker will be presenting the academic services budgets, followed by Maurice Oldham will be presenting the business and operations, followed by Dr. Michelle Klein in accountability. Then we'll move into the superintendent's budgets, and Dr. Stanford will kick that off, and then you'll get into communications, legal services, the budget office, followed by Stan in the treasurer's office, and then Carolyn in the internal audit, and then Dr. Roush will be presenting the Board of Education and the Board Services budgets, and then we'll go from there. After we get through these, then what we'll do is then if there's any modifications or revisions that we need to make to these, we bring these back at the next month, as well as the personnel side of things. So this will continue to evolve as it leads into the development of the 5-year forecast and ultimately the approval of the annual appropriations.
All these documents we put on the web. so
Absolutely,
people can
yes, yes. This presentation is out there, as
There'll be a
well
link.
as the narratives that we made copies of. Those are on the web. They're in prettier format, they're in color, and those are on today's agenda as well.
There's a way for
We-
people to comment if they want to.
And Mr. Varner and I have talked about that in a way to solicit feedback if anybody has any ideas, comments, concerns, or otherwise about the budget process, how we can get that and make sure that we're communicating with our constituents. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Baker.
Thanks, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, I'm not Alicia Gillison. Alicia being the former English teacher and I being the former math teacher, I get to do the budget presentation and she gets to present everything else for the year. So that's our agreement.
All right.
So there's just a quick snapshot of the executive directors who oversee the various OPUs and budgets within academic services. That's certainly not all of our leadership. Our school leadership development and executive directors aren't listed there. They don't necessarily manage the specific budgets that are in the department. So I just listed the ones that have those budgets. And we'll get right into kind of a very high-level view of what we're, of course, as a department trying to accomplish in the next 5 years, and that's really centered around the 3 priorities that Dr. Good has set for us. The first being very high-quality pre-K instruction so that kids are kindergarten ready when they enter kindergarten. What we're really taking into account is that this is not just our pre-K instruction, but we're also partnering with our neighborhood providers to ensure that no matter where those four-year-olds are, they're getting a high-quality education, and we're trying to share ideas, share best practices, so that when kids do enter kindergarten, regardless of where they're coming from, they're as ready as we can possibly get them to be. So we are making those connections. And again, ensuring that kindergartners are ready when they enter that school year. A next major priority, of course, is ensuring that students are reading on grade level by the end of grade 3 so that they meet that promotion criteria and can move forward with the 3rd grade reading guarantee. And then moving on from there, ensuring that those students cross the stage at the end of grade 12. So those are the major priorities. And then kind of putting all of those into one statement really is looking at also trying to remove those academic and non-academic barriers to success, and whatever programs, whatever resources we need to put into kids and teachers' hands to make that happen is what we're trying to do. So with that, we'll get right into the various OPUs. The first one we're going to look at a series that is more departmental and in-school leadership and academic services. This first one is OPU 907, which is our student mentoring OPU. This is a new OPU for our department. It moved over from, I believe, the superintendent's office, and so moved into our shop for this coming school year. Not a significant increase. In fact, no increase at all is in the ask for this OPU. Major initiative will be procuring the services of a consultant to work with that office on marketing and looking at some of the processes we have in place to ensure that we're able to offer the best mentoring experience for our students and for the mentors that work with those kiddos. OPU 914 is a new OPU actually for our department. Ms. Gillison and I wanted to separate out some of the school leadership dollars that we had because we noticed a trend in that some are very focused on the departmental supports and some are very focused on building supports. So we tried to separate those out just a little bit so we can better differentiate those dollars. So what you will see, this is a new OPU, but these are not new dollars. We've just moved those dollars over from the 934 school leadership development OPU. What we plan on using these dollars for is a lot of departmental support, looking at professional development during PD days, during a departmental PD that needs to happen. Some needs arise through the year that are kind of unaccounted for, and so we have some dollars there. For example, with the opening of the Woodward Park at Walden for this coming school year, they need a library. And so knowing that we needed to tap into some funds to provide them with a library, we didn't plan on that last year. And so knowing that there is that small pot of funds where we can do some of those emergency things, that's also what we will use this for. Moving on to 918, this is professional learning and licensure.
I have a quick question.
Please.
How many employees or department leaders under this OPU?
This is one that I'll be managing for the department. It just is going to depend on what the need is at the time, but it's one that I'll be directly managing.
So the key investments for this one are listed or include conferences, and I just wondered how many folks are in that?
Oh, sure. That could be any of the executive directors that are listed.
Okay.
That we might be supporting in that.
Thanks.
Sure. 918, this is professional learning and licensure. A small increase in this OPU for next year, and this is really because the product that we use for tracking PD We are anticipating that they're going to be telling us they're not going to be providing that service any longer. And so we are reserving some funds to be able to procure then a new vendor for the following school year. So we'll be going through that RFP process, and we wanted to have those funds set aside to be able to do that. They're not servicing the product as of now.
Is that the PD planner?
Yes, yeah, SchoolNet.
Oh, okay.
And then getting into 934, you'll see this is a large increase in an OPU, but only part of it are new funds that we're asking for. This is the School Leadership Development OPU that
Can I
is...
hold on 1 second? So I would just suggest in 918, and that, say something about that PD planner is going to be expiring. I guess I don't see that. Tell the story.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Will do. Thank you. So 934, like I said, is one that's a large increase. However, much of those funds are being moved over from a different OPU as well. We've moved the dollars that are set aside for City Year and Communities in Schools from teaching and learning over to this 934 OPU because we felt it was very direct building service, and we thought that was best coming through school leadership rather than our teaching and learning office. So what you'll see is then a reduction in the teaching and learning OPU when we get to that one. This is also the funds that are a new ask in this OPU, I will share with you, is a $250,000 increase. Through the board retreat that was held, the notion of looking at a strategic planning process was discussed, and Dr. Stanford and I have been in contact with some various folks who are experts in that area, and so we are asking for dollars to support the strategic planning process, and felt that this would probably be the best place to put those funds so that we can be able to access them.
And just from, again, capturing a lot of this, where you've got dollars moving from a different division, distinguishing what's new and what's transferred on the slide would be helpful.
Yeah. Do you have that,
So-
Scott, so we can try to capture those?
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
So I guess I know that there was a reference to strategic planning. So does this contemplate this? I mean, it sounded like it was an internal strategic planning process, report out to the board. So does this contemplate anything outside of that?
The OPU itself?
No, the 250.
The 250? Well, we're just in initial conversations with vendors, so we're not sure what that whole...
No, but I mean, what, so beyond that, we didn't really discuss anything else as a board. So I'm just wondering, like, what's contemplated in the spend?
Do you want to?
Sure. What we are really very interested in doing with the process is not only to develop a strategic plan for the entire district, but also to have strategic plans for every department and every office that aligns to that district-wide strategic plan. But in addition to that, Dr. Good is very, very interested in having something that will drive decision-making at the front-line level. And so being able to, as he says, to have a decision like, do we serve broccoli or do we serve French fries, district-wide, and being able to have the data from the strategic planning process with balanced scorecards that will be able to help our frontline people make those type of decisions based on the data that's available through the system. And so our 5-year budgeting process will help us develop that type of process, and the consultant hopefully would be able to give us that additional knowledge base to help us develop that.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
957 is our student activities and athletics budget. There's no significant change there. The largest expenditure out of that OPU is that vendor contract for our athletic trainers. So that's the large chunk of that ask. 961 is our peer assistance and review, the PAR program for our teachers who are just new to the profession, and the supports that we provide those teachers. Again, no change in the ask there, and no change in the service level there. So that takes us out of school leadership and the department as a whole, and we get into our Office of Teaching and Learning. So we'll start looking at that, and we go back, if you flip in your packet to 904, we're going to go back to one of the earlier OPUs. This is one that has a significant decrease due to moving those funds over to school leadership development. This is the Office of Teaching and Learning. With those dollars, one of the largest things that Sandy Donald is hoping to be able to do for next year is look at a progress monitoring tool for our K through 8 grade levels. This is a requirement by the third grade reading guarantee that we provide a progress monitoring tool for our teachers to use, and that has to happen by law in grade 3, but we'd certainly like to have that tool available and start looking at that progress monitoring in other grades as well. So that's going to be the big ticket item out of that one. 905 is our curriculum budget. This is same dollar amount as requested from last year. One of the things that they are looking at out of this OPU for the coming school year is looking at a new reading intervention tool for our primary grades and being able to, or I'm sorry, our middle grades, and being able to provide that professional development as well.
Dave,
Please.
can you remind us what moved out of this OPU last budget, in this budget?
Sure, the big 904?
Yeah.
That was the cost for city year and for communities and schools.
Okay.
That moved over to the 934 OPU. And we'll outline those costs on the next version. That was a good idea.
Thank you.
910 is the specific OPU for reading and language arts. There's no increase in the ask here. One of the things we'll be looking at, which is going to be a larger item out of this OPU for the new year, is looking at a computer-based reading intervention tool to provide some real-time data for our teachers in terms of intervening with students. 912 is our social studies OPU. No change in the ask there. They're looking at continuing with a lot of those real-life experiences for students, trying to look at increasing the opportunities for mock trial, for youth in government, getting students into some of those real-life situations, going to the history museum, things like that. 917 is our early childhood education OPU. This is for pre-K and supporting that entrance to kindergarten. A slight increase in this OPU. We're having, our pre-K programs are very high quality, and so Ann Lockett, who's the director of early childhood education, she wants to begin exploring the national accreditation process for our pre-K and have some national recognition there.
Is that outside the 5-star rating?
Yes, the 5-star rating is through the Ohio Department of Education, so this will be a different accreditation process through the NACE, and I'm sure you're going to ask me what NACE stands for, and right off the top of my head, I forget, but I can get that for you. But that'll.
Does this take into account some of the things that, we had been hearing about, possibility of a Hilltop expansion with the city? How does this budget reflect sort of those assumptions or possibilities?
Yeah, any expansion that we would do would be reliant on grant dollars. That usually none of that comes from the general fund, so we'd be exploring those grant dollars in order to do any of that. We are in initial talks about what the needs are on the Hilltop, and certainly they do need pre-K. We had a conversation just last week on the phone with some folks as to space, and the challenge is that most of our schools on the Hilltop don't have space in them, so we've got to look for other space that we could probably provide that service. Moving on to 919, this is the mathematics budget. Again, just a slight decrease actually in the funds that they're asking for here. Really wanting to provide a lot of professional development around guided math. Guided reading is certainly a technique that a lot of our teachers have used for a long time, and trying to bring some of those same ideas and techniques into the mathematics instruction is a desire of teaching and learning this year. 920 is the same ask as last year. Again, continuing the professional development around integrating science and literacy. so that those can be taught in tandem with one another, and as well looking at some professional development around those authentic learning experiences that students can have. 923 is a new OPU to the office for this year, not new dollars, however. This is Speech and Language Services, which is also overseen by Ann Lockett, who oversees pre-K. And we felt it would just be easier for her to manage those funds if we could pull those out into their own OPU. So these actually came from the 932, which is that very large special education OPU. We just pulled the speech and language services dollars out. It's a slight increase in what those asks were from last year, however. Our audiometers, which are the tools we use to screen students for speech and language services, have not been calibrated for some time, and that probably needs to be done this year. So she wants to set aside those dollars for that. 924 is Unified Arts. Slight increase going into this new school year. The increase would be used to replace some instruments that we have that are in dire need of replacement, and as well providing our secondary vocal teachers with digital keyboards. Our pianos are quite out of tune, and that's a cost, an annual cost to tune those pianos, where if we provided digital keyboards, which is more the direction that a lot of music industry is taking, those wouldn't need to be tuned on a yearly basis, and they would actually provide more solid opportunities there. Into the 21st century, our music classes are going.
No, I just think it's such a shame that, it's still the real instrument.
I know. Pounding those keys. 927, library services, a slight decrease here. We are into phase 2 of the library refresh, and so phase 2 was going to cost us just a little less than the last phase was. But continuing, of course, with adding some of those makerspace opportunities in the libraries and bringing those libraries into the 21st century as well.
Makerspace?
Makerspaces are having the 3D printers, those opportunities for kids to go in and create, to be innovative. It's interesting when you hand adults some of those tools, they want to know where the directions are, but kids will just go in and try. And so having that opportunity for students to do that is really exciting to watch.
Where did 927 live at before this? It just looks like at 15 there was nothing and then a big increase.
927 was in teaching and learning before. I don't think that came from anywhere else. It had been a long time since we had put any dollars into library,
Wow.
and so it was a significant increase last year.
So, but we would highlight that in this budget, we again we continue to make a big investment in our library services, which, is any of that is that because, no, that wouldn't be because of the levy, that was
That
just
was
a
general fund last year as
additional
well.
commitment. Certainly should be a highlight of any description here, I think.
I'll make note of that. 928 textbooks, the same ask as what we were able to get last year, and this will be used to provide supplemental materials for various courses, looking at the specialty schools, making sure that ACLE Kenwood, CSIA, Columbus Afrocentric have some of those supplementary materials that will go along with those, that go along with the other resources that are provided, but also allowed for those specialty schools to have that connection as well.
And that bump in 16 and then the correction or whatever, the change to 17, 18, 19, that was due to a refresh in 16? and having to get
Yes,
some
we
additional-
did a large, I believe, math adoption that
Yeah.
year. Was it math, that first year of the
Yeah.
large increase? The plans were to do the English language arts adoption for primary grades this year. Didn't get to do the whole adoption just because of the capital funds that were pulled out last year, so we weren't able to continue that. We were able to purchase those supplementary materials, so we were at least able to get some support materials that are aligned to the standards.
Oh, I don't remember that ever coming up, though.
What's that?
That we weren't able to do that because, did we fix roofs instead?
Yep.
I just think we should that should be made clearer to us as that's going on.
One of the conversations we had at our internal budget hearings was pulling all of those capital items that were pulled out of the various budgets last year, getting them into one document so that we can see and start to prioritize
I think that
as
should
funding
be
becomes
done.
available.
I think that, because I understand why we have to prioritize it, but I think that if that isn't communicated, then that's how we built up that deficit in different departments, because it just, we continue to rob Peter to pay Paul.
We have it.
We should see it.
Yep, got it.
That was part of that, this evolved into that capital planning
Yeah.
discussion, and that it's going to have to include all the pieces.
Yeah.
In just in a brief dichotomy, here's the funded ones, here's the unfunded ones, because I think I even mentioned, we passed a PI levy, we passed a bond issue, and while we should all feel good about that, we shouldn't feel like, okay, we're all set,
Right.
because we're
But
not.
we can't, but I think those are the kind of issues that take years of community discussion to understand it and to socialize it, and then to garner support for it. So, I just think that will help seed that conversation.
And then as you track things that aren't done and aren't funded, I mean, eventually you have to ask yourself, how long do they stay on the list? I mean, what are the other consequences? If we don't fund them or don't prioritize or don't do something with them. But I think it has to be an exhaustive list of things that we continue to add to and take off of over time.
But I think it's even more fun. It's saying, when we say we have a commitment to have more buildings, but if we continue to make the commitment, it means we have less textbooks. It just seems to be like, that's not a good trade-off. And that's a real fundamental issue, policy issue, that hopefully we can bring that out even more, because sometimes we might have to think, okay, it'd be nice to have more buildings, but if it means less textbooks, then maybe we need to pick the textbooks over the buildings.
Having the information to make that decision.
Yes, yeah, collectively. Everybody, and you all, administration can point that out and say, by making this choice, we have to make this other choice.
I was thinking also if there's a way, in like buildings, age of plant or something, is there a marker on this that what is a good spend on an annual basis? How many books are we talking about, or something that gives it, a relative value for us? And then the other thing, just generally, is understanding what's in that 5-year budget and what's new. So on the big dollar things. So are we working the plan, or are there deviations from the plan at some level would be, where we would provide good context for us? Make sense?
Great, thank you.
Sure. 940 is the OPU for our higher education partnerships. This would be College Credit Plus and other programs like that. We have seen an increase in the number of students, so you are going to see an increase in the ask in this OPU. That would cover the cost of tuition for those students, as well as textbooks that we are required to purchase for those students to participate in the programs. I will share with you, Tanya McClanahan, who oversees this, is running a used textbook office or store out of her office, because we do get those textbooks back. And so if students are taking those same courses year after year, we can reuse them. Hopefully the universities will want to use the same textbooks year after year, at least for a while. So that's our hope anyway, until we can get them out of her office. 974 is the last OPU in teaching and learning. This is the world language budget. No increase there. I'll share with you one of the goals that Katie Myers and the world language folks are hoping to do is come to fruition with the seal of biliteracy that our students could earn as they develop those language skills. And now moving into special education and student support services. The first OPU here is 913.
All right, hold on a second.
No, I know, we'll flip back to the beginning.
The narratives that you have are
I know, but they have the
chronological.
numbers on them, and
Yes.
that tells,
Maybe for the next one, we'll put the numbers, I'll help put the numbers in presentation order, that might help.
Yeah, well, once we get other pieces together, then like we did last year, we'll have a PDF and then we'll have a bookmark by department, so then you can just
That worked well.
click it and take it right there.
That's good.
That piece is not done yet.
Just a minute, okay, everybody else okay? I'm good.
913. This is a new OPU for this coming school year. These dollars appeared in that 932, that very large special education OPU that we had. And again, we felt it would be in the best interest of the budget managers to pull this one out and allow Cheryl Ward to oversee this OPU separately.
And is it about the same amount that was in 17 in the other line item?
It's just a little bit more than the ask was from last year from these same dollars.
Just to echo what Mary Jo said, and just
Yes.
as we.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's highlighted.
PPIS?
PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. Whew, I didn't know NACI, but I knew that one. That's the models that each of the schools have on establishing those behavioral expectations and how we support them throughout the day, throughout the week and the year.
We'll go back as part of the next version and make sure that we get those spelled out.
Thank you.
That's a good idea. The next OP...
Just real quick for my
Please.
notes, the last section that we went over, what was the subtitle?
That was the Office of Teaching and Learning,
That's right, thank you.
and this is now Special Education and Student Support Services.
Thank you.
So 930 is the next OPU. This is our Health, Family, and Community Services. We'll see an increase in this ask for this coming school year. This is to provide stock inhalers in each of our clinics for our students who might be in some sort of breathing distress. And we also added in back one major ask from last year, and that was to be able to replace all of the AEDs across the district. There is a cost savings if we replace them all at once rather than as they break down. They're getting to the point where some of them have been in the building long enough that they probably do need replaced. So that's one that we would very much like to do for the coming school year.
This
930.
was sort of all, was this just the nature of this? 15 through 16 through 17 through 18 just seems to spike up and down. Is it just,
I'd have to look back and see what those causes were and why that one had changed. I don't have the historical knowledge on that one. Scott, do you know what may have caused those to spike from one
what?
year
What
to
was it?
another?
just the variance from year to year, from
Oh, yeah,
15
yeah,
through
yeah.
18? It just seems to be,
Which years are we looking at?
I was looking at 15, 16, 17, 18, and then 19, it sort of settles down to a,
Yeah, in 16, there was an increase for equipment. That was the major driver in 16. And prior to that, there were much lower numbers.
There were some new mandates. Here, that's in here.
Find out what that is.
go by it, so it's fine for now. Thank you.
931, the next one is I Know I Can. This is, most of this budget is that contract with I Know I Can and the services that they are able to provide our high school
But
students.
wasn't there another one that was, I know it? Oh, no, the city.
Yeah, City
Okay.
Year and
Sorry.
Communities and Schools
Yeah,
is the one
sorry,
we
sorry,
switched.
sorry.
Yeah. I Know I Can had its own, so we've just left it as having its own. So, it is an increase there for the year so that we can increase some of those opportunities for the college visits and the parent engagement that we have with that organization.
And our big bump from 15 to 16 is when I do remember increasing.
Correct. We increased the number
personnel.
of I Know I Can counselors that we
Yeah.
have in the schools.
What, yeah.
Yeah, that was the big jump there.
For this one and from that bump, are we tracking data now to evaluate, was that worth it and,
Looking at the-
success? I mean, I would think that's going to be a multi-year evaluation.
Sure, not only looking at that graduation rate, but looking at the number of students who leave high school, go on to college, and as well the number of students that then stay in.
Stay.
And yes,
Yeah.
that's key data for them.
So how long do you feel like that, what's the look, like, looking forward? When do we look at that and say, this is working?
Well, we actually did a program review this year.
Okay.
That's something that Cheryl Ward led, looking at the pieces and parts of the program, what is working well and what they need to tweak a little from year to year. Alicia, do you have anything you want to add about I Know I Can and the reviews?
Come on, come on.
She gets to join me.
Yay.
In reference to a program review, we're also looking at not the number of kids that are graduating, but the number of kids that are persisting and are entering college and then are coming back that very next year.
Oh, good.
One thing that we're finding is that like last year, there were 187 students who had filled out college applications who had been accepted, but never showed up on the college campus in the fall. So now working with I Know I Can, we're trying to dig down into, why that's happening. Of course, when you're in school and you have your counselor and your advisor and your peers, is something different. Once summer starts, well, then David is starting to work at McDonald's. And now it's instant gratification because he is getting that money. And he's thinking, maybe I'll stay and delay college. But what we're trying to do now, and I Know I Can, is wrapping those supports around the young people to make sure that summer melt number, that 187 decreases immensely.
Good. I was wondering too, like, just, with this additional investment, I think it's, it has to be working.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering, what will it take to share that with the community in a way to say, this works, and it works, and we should do even more of it,
Well, like, we are doing the program reviews, and we are looking at the data so that we can share that holistically and publicly so everyone can see. And actually, right now, there are other districts that are interested in the programming that we're doing because we are seeing positive results.
Good.
But of course, we want to keep it for ourselves. But we will have to share eventually.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can stay.
Just stay.
You can hang out now that you're here.
Yeah. See you later.
932 is the next one. This is that large special education budget. You'll see the reduction again because we've pulled several OPUs out of this one so that budget managers can manage some of their own finances. So that's why there's a reduction there.
We don't have to say it. We'll just know in the next version.
Yeah,
Those will be-
we'll have that called out.
Thank you.
Good.
We'll find a good way of capturing that.
Are there any increases in the remaining portion?
Nope.
Okay. So the rest stays flat?
Correct. Then moving into the Office of Innovation and Improvement, this first OPU is 909. This is the English as a Second Language OPU, and there's a significant increase in this ask, going from $59,250 to $559,250. We've been working with the Office of Civil Rights on some recommendations that they have made regarding translation and interpretation services that we need to provide for our families.
Okay.
And one of the things that we have to do as a result of these conversations is translate many of our vital documents that we have into the 5 major languages that Columbus serves. Of course, we serve, what's the total number of languages, Alicia?
We have over 96
Yeah, it's-
languages.
But there are 5 prominent languages, and so they've shared with us that we need to get those various vital documents translated. Sometimes translating those vital documents is rather expensive, and so this is, I think, going to be the tip of the iceberg. I think this is what it's going to cost us to do this first year, but this will probably be a good couple years down the road as we are continuing to do that translation of documents.
Do we have to contract that out?
To do the massive amount that we have to do,
Translation
yes.
services, yes.
Yeah.
Is there a way to involve our students or in that effort?
Not based on the recommendation from the Office of Civil Rights, and quite honestly, to make sure that it is,
The
that
legalities.
they're in the appropriate translation of the documents and not in a specific dialect that may be familiar to, they will use those more formal, official dialects that would be more commonly known, so.
what's a vital document? What is?
We have an extensive
Included and
list.
what's not.
Yeah, we can have an extensive list we can provide. It's going to start with some of those discipline forms and letters that would be going home. Those aren't necessarily all translated into all of those 5 prominent languages. We would be looking at the enrollment documents that students would need, or families would need to enroll their students. And that'll be interesting because our enrollment process is now online, so we'll have to figure out how to do that in an online version as well.
And IEPs, individualized education plan.
Yeah.
504s.
For the,
Wow.
right, for the special education supports for our families. It's a good
I
move.
would-
It's the right
Yeah,
thing to do.
it's the right thing
No,
to do
it's
for the
totally
families.
the right thing
It's
to
going to
do.
be pretty expensive.
I think that, for example, and I would suggest that somewhere in that,
That we call that
that
out.
you, lift that out, key communications to parents and guardians, including IEPs. Everybody, because everybody knows what that is and would think, absolutely.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that,
They have that
they
information.
know, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good call out. The next one is 922. This is our summer school budget, and this is one I do want to come back to. It'll look different in the next presentation. Ms. Hudson, as you were talking earlier about title funds, one of the things that dawned on me just as I sat down in this seat was the reduction in title funds for summer school for next year, and so I've got to go back and build that back in here. So this OPU will look different. It will look a little higher of an ask than what it appears it does
Well,
now.
and I just, what goes through my mind is like sort of a menu based on what do we rely on right now, what program services we rely on for federal funds, and if it's on the chopping block that we're able to advise folks that represent us of that, but also so we can make other choices if we have to make other choices. Because if it's textbooks or eating, we might have to think eating is more important, and what else can we do to MacGyver our curriculum materials?
Well, and those are the conversations we have as we're anticipating some potential
Yeah.
reductions in federal funds. We've already asking what are those choices? Which ones do we have to sunset, and which ones then do we have to cover using general funds because we know our students need it?
Yeah, but then in turn, we tell the community,
This is-
Exactly.
this is what we have to do, and this is
And
why.
this is why.
Yeah.
So we will come back. That one will look different the next time you see this OPU, just for that very reason. 933 is the OPU for our gifted services. A slight increase here. A couple call-outs with that. One is the increase in the enrollment at Columbus Gifted Academy. We do have to provide some additional resources there on account of that increased enrollment. And as well, with the new regulations that will be approved from the Ohio Department of Education, one of those regulations may be that we have to provide a certain number of hours of professional development for not only our gifted educators, but our general educators who teach gifted students who are identified. And so we are setting those dollars aside in case we have to provide that professional development, which will be a state mandate. And last but not least, 921, this is our career and technical education
But
OPU.
hold on
Please,
one
please.
second. I'm so sorry. What left, did you say what came out of this? We're at 9:30.
Yeah. Nothing came out of gifted.
Okay.
Yeah. It just-
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at 16 to 17.
Okay.
Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, we didn't make any reduction there or pull anything out of there. In the career and technical, this is 921, and this is the last one in academic services. You'll see a slight increase in this ask. This is due to a piece of software that supports all of our business courses across the district. We do need to renew that software for one more year while we go through the RFP process to look at potential other products. And so we did put that, the cost of that license into this budget for next year.
Yeah. Basically.
And that wraps up all of the academic services OPUs for the year.
David,
Good job.
This
Good,
guy
okay.
must be one.
well, okay, let's see here. Yeah, and I think that one, just explaining the differences because of the OPU moves.
Yep, we'll find a way of really making that visible.
Like a net difference.
Mhm, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Highlighting it, we'll find a good visual for that.
The other thing, as we were going through this, there's some information in here that obviously is not there, but the other way around, you've got some things up there that you may want to
Okay.
move some of that explanatory or highlighted things.
Kind of do the crosswalk between the two documents to make sure
Yeah,
everything's captured.
it's helpful.
Okay.
And it really is, provides an understanding of, what all's going on.
We can do that. That's a good
What
suggestion.
are we doing,
Perfect. Anything else? All right. I will turn things over to my colleague, Maurice Oldham, for business operations. Thank you all.
First and third.
I started this bottle of water.
I was taking this for whoever's name.
There you go.
I want to know how he works at the school district and McDonald's.
Here we go.
We're going to try to put things together where we have, it's a type of process that we can set those to sort of get people up to speed on things without doing it always at every meeting, before thinking of that, but we'll be looking to keep guys from talking. And thank you so much. I know it's a lot to tell.
It's a nice time to walk away.
I hear you.
So much structure.
So we don't want to take this the wrong way, right? You leaving.
Stan, I had planned 90 minutes and
Sure.
I've got something I need to get to. Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
See you.
See you soon. Thank you,
See ya. Good to see you soon.
We're good. Let's go.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maurice Oldham, Chief Operating Officer, Business and Operations. I'll be going through the business operations budget. Business operation consists of 18 OPUs, operating units. Within that, there's 11 departments. In our operating unit, there's 10 departments that's identified here. Food services is different. So just wanted to cover that. Our last year ask in FY17 total was $53.7 million. This year is 52.8, so it's a reduction of 800,000, but I'll explain why. Now, some departments may go up, some may go down, but again, overall, as a division, we're below last year. In business operation, over the next 5, what our goal is and what we want to work on is committed to ensuring our students' futures are transformed to 21st century learning environments. In order to do that in the next 5 years, what we want to do is, in business operations, restart the district facilities master plan, planning, design, and construction of that. We think that's important as we move forward as a district, but also continue expansion of technology capacity for our students, unified communication tools in the classroom, continue maintenance and repair of district fleets, minimize disruption to the learning environment. In order to do that, we want to start moving towards planned maintenance opposed to reactive maintenance, and then also increase planned maintenance, and then network all of our copiers within the district. And our goal with that is, as we move towards networking the copiers, hope to be able to reduce the number of printers and then reduce costs of toner and those type of things. So it's all part of a strategy. Capital improvement is operating unit 936. Last year, capital improvements actually was $4.1 million. This year is $311,000. And the reason for that is, to make it very clear, is last year we had some capital dollar budgets. We had some general fund dollars that should have been capital within our general fund. As you know, the levy passed, and for the bond dollars, that'll be coming out of the capital improvement. But this $311,000 is what it takes to run the department.
Also, we were using GRF dollars to fix capital. Okay.
And so this is what it takes to run the department. But what I want to point out too, within this capital improvements budget, because it's not separate, some of those dollars as well reflect items that's in for our real estate services. So appraisals and those type of things, or legal fees that's in real estate service. So our highlights is looking at space management software and implementation. We believe that's important to know where everything is in our facilities for space, classrooms, and when we're moving people around. Project management software implementation, and an Operation Fix-It. Then our real estate disposal plan. Those are some of the highlights that we're looking at in capital improvement.
And then again, if we could just make sure that it's clear on this, the big change and why it was explained, what happened last year and why it's different, because it just sticks out to you.
Okay. Next is information technology. Information technology budget, it increased $38,000. However, overall in the budget, there's some things they want to call out is to continue expansion of technology offerings to our students. Also, refresh of classroom data center technology and continued staff development. Anytime, as you know, technology is constantly moving, it's always important that we always, for our staff, have staff development to keep up what's going on, but also maintaining what we have. And I will say we have a very good team there, but we want to make sure they stay cutting edge. Some of the things to point out as well, again, I said it's only a $38,000 increase, but however, one of the things we budgeted is network penetration. If you may recall last year, that was something we took out of the budget, but we feel it's critically important that we do network penetration for our IT department this year, just as for security reasons. So. Next. 945 is network and telecommunications. This budget was $3.7 million, and in FY17 is 2.6. And one of the big drivers here, it went down $1 million, is that under this we actually rebid out internet services, and we actually got a better pricing this year. And so that was able to drive that down from that previous budget. But the other thing I want to note too,
we could note that too. Things like that on this are really good, especially when we're putting this out. These are really good, what we would call blue books. The introduced version of this, but it really tells you want to tell that story with all this, and if we're saving, I definitely want that out there.
any other questions on this one? Okay, moving right along. Transportation services, 947. And transportation services last year was 3.1 million. This year is 4.4. And basically, we want to continue robust hiring and advertising campaign for new bus drivers. We feel that we did some advertising this year, and by putting the word out and advertising and being strategic about it, we was able to get more drivers coming to the door for hiring processes. We also looking to purchase 10 tablets in our current system. We use what we call left-right turns, and it's really on paper. And our transportation director been working with our vendors and with the state, and now they're moving towards, and we want to pilot possibly using tablets, mounted tablets on the bus. And so all the routes on the tablet, so when it's a sub-driver, opposed to looking at a piece of paper, it's on the tablet, sort of like your GPS, and able to be able to transport students.
They have to use a piece of paper? Oh my goodness.
By law. But now we trained it, so our goal is to be able to pilot the tablets, as long as they're mounted. So again, we believe that overall eventually makes it more effective and efficient.
Like police cars have that.
Correct.
Okay.
Just mount.
And that's the bump, so pretty much the big bump.
Well, the bump is, again, if you recall, and this is it's in the budget because we want to not exceed. In the middle of the year, we looked at, and we're piloting a program of a firm to help recruit drivers or train drivers so drivers are available. And so again, we believe as we move forward, that would become more effective and efficient. The company is new to the community, so we're working through that. So those dollars are budgeted. But again, those are not to exceed dollars, so we included it. Last year, we removed those dollars from fuel and moved it over in transportation, so we accounted for it this year. But again, in that particular program, we only pay for what we utilize. Again, so therefore, and the goal in this program, the way it's designed, the company helps us with our internal recruitment. They also help their own recruiting. They have drivers that come on board that should be already ready to drive. Within a 90-day window after they have been on board, we can hire them on our payroll as well. So again, we're able to have two types of recruitment. So again, our goal is to be very strategic in how we include transportation.
Is there an offset in your payroll budget then? So I'm just trying to wrap around $1.3 million increase.
But the $1.3 million,
you're basically staffing the same number of buses. You're doing it with the outsourcing. So is there a big?
So what would happen is right now we have vacancies. And so in some cases, because of those vacancies, you have to double routes. And so the offset would be as those drivers come on board, we don't have, the vacant dollars, we actually have covered it as well. But it'd be,
It might be, if you can quantify that to footnote, that it's just transferring dollars out of the payroll, is that?
yes. Just want to make sure I wasn't saying something. Any other questions on that?
I guess that would be the question, does a bus driver make more if they're driving a double route? Or,
No, what happens is, well, let me define double so it makes kind of sense.
okay.
There's different type of strategies in that. For example, we may have a route, if it's vacant, we split it up amongst routes. So it's not doing a full-fledged route, so it
Okay.
maybe stops within the area of responsibility.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so it doesn't increase their span.
So it would definitely improve, services to
Yes.
have all those vacant filled. Thank you. That helps.
Fleet services. In our fleet service, last year ask was 8.4, this year is 8.1. One of the things I will move off this from next time, because I don't want to create confusion, is the replacement of school buses. I just wanted to point it out, and I talked earlier, that's in our PI side. I just wanted to note that so people understand we are looking at our buses. However, we're also looking to replace support equipment, which helps support our buses. Also out of fleet, and our fleet services, custodial equipment, they partnership together and the equipment's bidded out of fleet services. And then we're also looking at maintenance and repair of the district fleet. So again, fleet service reduced, but we also reduced because we're looking at how we can be more effective with our service like a tire replacements, and we're looking at different strategies for that. We're also looking at how we can be more creative when we place our bids out. What we've been looking to do in some cases is unbundle services when we place bids out, and so we can try to get better pricing on that as well.
What's the 2 million then from 16 to 17 in equipment that's different? Is that the buses that we use GRF dollars on, or?
In the reduction?
Yes, on 16 we have 2 million in fiscal
Well-
year 16, and then it's zeroed out.
Well, one of the things we did also, we reduced our fuel dollars from 16, but I have to really research. But one of the things in the fuel dollars,
What it looks like is there was an equipment purchase in
In 16 for $2 million.
for 2 million, and then if it was fuel, there would be
It's up in
in
supply
that line, in that
services.
other line item, but it looks like there was 27,000 in 15, went up to 2 million, and then zeroed out from 17 throughout, and
I can look, I don't have 16 with me. I have 17 on up, so I
look it up later, and
can go
just
back to 16.
maybe an email.
Yeah, there was something budgeted for equipment in 16, we'll have to go back and look at the actual one. That was even more.
So,
And that's been moved out now in the future to the
What was it
levy
needed?
capital.
Yes.
And then maybe some narrative on that as well,
yeah.
on this.
Oh, I was just going to ask in narrative what, raising how many buses?
So, oh, you want to put it in the narrative? What we're looking at is 18 buses, based on the PI, 18,
Yes.
and then 20 over 5 years, so.
Yeah, that's, I think that would be helpful to have in there. Just even just the 18.
I had it and I took it out.
Always trust your gut.
All right. Buildings and grounds. Buildings and grounds, actually last year budget, we reduced from what I really originally asked was. Last year was 3.9, we actually went up $1 million, 4.9. Our goal in buildings and grounds is, again, as I stated earlier, is to reduction in building system breakdowns and improve customer service, which all tie together. As we start moving towards planned maintenance as opposed to reactive maintenance, what it's going to do is in the staff, there's its own schedules when you're constantly looking. So like when you replace your car, when the timing belt is due to be changed. So it's the same thing with our systems and life cycle replacement within our buildings. And so by doing that, under services such as property services as well as our general supplies or purchase services, those costs will elevate. But our buildings and ground budget has always been very, very tight. I mean, if you look several years ago, I think we was running maybe at $2 million or 2.6. And so as we're trying to move in a direction of change the behavior, that's going to be critical that we're able to move in a plan opposed to reactive. And the reason why it's also critical, we want to start moving it because so it becomes part of the culture as well as behavior, because as we're looking at these bond projects that we're doing, we want to make sure it becomes part of our process so that we're maintaining what we put up and put into our buildings. The next one is environmental safety and health. That went down from 898 to 759. That particular department falls on the buildings and ground. It's an offset of it. It provides safe learning and work environment. And it also impacts our compliance. And one reason why it goes down is we have on years where certain inspections are required. And this is one of the, so some are on 2-year cycles, some are on 5-year cycles. So that's why you see the reduction there.
I think we didn't get this
There's
page.
no
Yeah,
page
we don't
for
have
it.
950. I'm glad someone else said that.
That's
The
on here.
PDF is 946, then it jumps to 952.
We have 951.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We just know 950.
So just so you know, Maurice, we're all shuffling because we
Yes.
were looking for
Yeah, I
that.
don't-
Where did I put it?
951.
We don't have that right there, we don't have.
So that's doing a lot of our compliance within the buildings and grounds and regulatory
Okay.
finding. Custodial services. Custodial services went from 1.8 million to 2.1.
We'll get that emailed out to everyone. Page.
And, I'm sorry. Let me continue?
I said it, sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, okay, I'm
That's
sorry.
right.
And so the increase in custodial services is due to, as you know, we're opening 2 different buildings this year, so there's going to be supplies. But also, in which the other thing is, if you may recall, in custodial services, for the since 2007, we've had a partnership with Solid Waste Authority with our recycling, and that's ending this year. So our recycling is going out to bid. And so again, we're accounting for what that may be. We have put bidding through a consortium to try to leverage pricing, and so we know that pricing hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. But again, we're counting on.
That's that jump in the purchase services to taking it to that stuff.
But for the last
So
7
is there a
years,
chance, I mean, will SWACO could possibly bid on that?
SWACO's
Are they
not bidding, but SWACO is partnering with us as well as other surrounding schools in Central Ohio, within Franklin County, if you will, and helping put the bid out, so in part of a consortium. So we put it out a couple ways. One way is we bid it out strictly just Columbus City schools. And then the second way is with the consortium to see which is the best leverage of pricing we can get.
Okay.
One of the things in that particular process is we bid it out, the bid is solid waste, which is regular trash, as well as recycling. We have we still in a contract with our regular waste. And so in the agreement, once the contract up, if it's a better price, we can always opt in. Before it's the recycling, we know the recycling is ending next year. Last year was going to end, we was able to keep another year. So it's been a good run since 2007. It's been a very good program.
And this would be just another place to sort of build into that narrative what that jump is on purchase services to help explain
Yeah.
that to the viewer.
Okay. Utilities, 952, falls under
Abilities.
buildings and grounds. The increase is a 3% increase, but that goes out to bid as well. Utility is one of those things that it could fluctuate. We are part of a consortium with our utilities, but one of the things we're looking to highlight with our utilities is provide monthly utility usage information to each school, so we can try to, how do we tie that into our learning environment. We're looking also to develop partnership with vendors to conserve for conservation energy awareness programs, so we can reduce our footprint. And then also we're looking to add real-time electric meters to our meters, and particularly in our legacy buildings. And one of the reasons for that is so that from our 17th office we can monitor, we can make adjustments, we can make changes and be more effective and efficient. So that's what we're going to utilize from that area as well.
And would we also, with the facility, Stan, the facility operations budget, to understand, the energy consumption in the building, that would be an indicator to a certain degree on that sort of piece that we're trying to put together. This would be, understanding, what sort of, these would be GRF dollar or general dollars because they aren't capital dollars, but they are adding a part of the cost of whatever building they are. And
Yeah, that's
as we're-
project number 2. Project number 1 was the capital budget. Project number 2 was all this discussion about
What
building
else?
operational costs and metrics there that feed into all of this. And that was the part that's scheduled for May
May.
discussion.
Okay. All right, purchasing. Purchasing went from 1.2 or 1.3 to 1.4. The highlights and purchase network all of our copiers. And the goal, like I already talked about that, network and the copiers can become more effective and efficient. We're looking to expand the number of solicitations that we manage to our customers. We want to save district by looking at a different process, but also looking to implement an electronic RFP process so it can be more effective and not utilize as much paper. And by not doing that, it's able to reduce costs that way as well.
Oh, yeah. So what's the LED improvement goal for the next year?
What is our goal for next year?
Well, it said purchasing will expand opportunities for LED vendors. So just wondering if there's a increased goal that we're targeting.
Well, what we're working on, what are you reading at? 'Cause I don't have that.
It's on this
Oh, you're looking at
953,
the-
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I was just kind of reading on.
This one, gotcha. Yeah. So basically, our goal is always the district aspiration goal is 20%. However, we always want to look at increasing that. What we're looking to do next year as in operations, we meet regularly to talk about LED participation. And I talk about that when we get to 975, but we're looking also in each department of development, a departmental goal for LED. Because again, when you look at different departments, the budget may be so small and the procurement opportunities may be so small, 20% may not be realistic. And so we're looking, for example, look at custodial service we just spoke about. Their largest procurement opportunities for them is chemicals, waste. And so it's only 2 really large procurement processes based on their budget. But again, back to your goal, we shoot again for the 20%, but even more so than the percentage, what we're looking to is how do we engage vendors to come to the table? How do we do business differently, make sure we're meeting with vendors throughout the course of the year before bids become to the table so that vendors are understanding and we are understanding how we can work partnering with vendors. We've already started that process. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting this Friday with our internal team to talk about ways. So again, we always utilize the 20%, but if we can exceed that, we always definitely want to do that as well.
So I don't have 69.
Printing and duplication is only increased $2,000. Basically, we market the entire range of service within the district. What we've been finding printing that our print shop, a 2-man team, has been doing a great job within the organization of taking a lot of the work in-house opposed to external, and being able to save the district a tremendous amount of dollars and actually even doing internal color copies. So what the goal is to, again, market the work they do and also bring a lot of that work back in-house so our team members know what's happening, what work we have available. They've been doing a great job. We want to continue to do that. Warehouse inventory, this is one I want to point out, and you see some asterisks behind the highlights. Last year was $134,000. That was due to some of the reductions. What we did have and we put it again as well for textbooks replacements. And this is different from the academic service side of the house. This is textbook replacement within the warehouse when textbooks come back in or they don't, or they tattered, worn, and they need to be replaced. On the academic service side of the house, it's for textbook adoptions. And so that's the difference in that point. And so again, some of the highlights in the warehouse services is moving towards scanned warehouse records into electronic database. Again, we have actually a lot of those This could be capital, but again, we just want to, those are some of the things we're trying to move to. Provide laptop computers for the book personnel at the high school and middle schools. And the reason for that is, as they're out in the school, they can scan, the information is download, and then become more effective and efficient when they come back and just download it into the system, opposed to doing paper copies and those type of things. And then also, again, I already mentioned about the textbook. And then also want to implement warehouse inventory software so we can be more effective and efficient. So those are some of the highlights in the warehouse services.
How do we communicate that $1 million, so that is the $1 million textbook replenishment, how far back, I mean, how much of that is deferred maintenance on the textbooks? And then I was just, how do we link that to the academic side of the house? Because that has an academic link. I mean, it's the first thing, all of this is academic, but seems direct. It just stands out as kind of being in an odd place.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because last year was the first year when we start this budget process. One of the things we talked about in the budget process, departments collaborated across divisions and trying to get dollars in the right places.
Yeah.
And so last year would have been the first year the money would have been on the warehouse side of the house budget line item. And the reason was to get the dollars in the right place. It is academic service, but it's the warehouse who manages. So the process was the warehouse taking inventory of what's on the shelf, what's needed, what's tattered. Then have to go to the academic service side of the house for dollars available to be able to replenish. And so that's why it's a separation, difference of the books that's in the warehouse for replenishment, different than the textbook adoptions that's done on the academic service side of the house. Those dollars stay there.
So this money's just shifted from a different item.
Last year, but it was reduced out of the budget. So last year, there was no budgeted dollars for replenishment. Now, we were able to, from other sources, find some money to be able to replenish some books. But Dennis, am I missing anything?
No, sir.
So to your point, when you're messaging, you might gross up the total investment in textbooks, but from a management perspective, they need it separated because of who's
Yeah,
responsible.
I think so. I was still kind of taking it in, and Tim, perfect. Yes. Don't leave this out. This is an important part of it. And no disrespect to the warehousing budget line. 955.
Next one's delivery service 956. In 956, budget went up 9,000, went from 300,000 to 309. Again, I just wanted to point it out, even though I didn't put an asterisk, but it's a capital. Again, replacement aging trucks and fleet. That would be on the PI side as well, but I wanted to note it. And the reason why I think it's important to note as well is because, again, we do have some fleets, trucks that need to be replaced. But also, if you recall, in our summer food program, we rent trucks in the summertime. And so as we start replacing those vehicles, one of the things we do is get refrigeration trucks so we can start reducing the number of trucks we have to rent in the summertime, and then we were able to reduce costs that way as well.
Oh, good.
So some of the things we're looking at as well. The other thing I want to mention in this particular budget, as you know, Delivery Services is the group that move schools. When we move, we do some of the internal, or it comes out of this particular budget. And this year also, we have schools, there's 2 schools that we're planning to move, which would be the Wilbur Park at Walden, as well as the Columbus Gifted Academy to Everett. So that's...
This equipment,
The equipment that in this particular, I know...
and is that PI money? Is it,
But the type of...
like, what money is it flowing? But like, so my question is sometimes, I guess I'm just confused on what stream of money it's coming from. Whether
So-
it's general or if it's capital in
Equipment
the
technically would be
future.
capital.
Yeah.
However, if there's no capital budget, and then also in the PI dollars, in our PI, one of the things we looked at is life cycle placement. We also looked at a district fleet. And so we have buses, we have some district fleet, but it's not a tremendous amount. It's over time, but we're looking at 18 buses, 2 district fleets in FY18. And then we look at that each year on how we start replacing those. If there was a capital budget outside of PI, then some of those things would be in capital, but we're looking at the source of dollars we have. Some of the other things, depending on which dollars you're talking, it's in the regular budget for is equipment that may not be something that's a capital that's necessary, is equipment that's necessary for the team members to do the moves and move items, whether it's dollies or whether it's some other type of widget that's necessary for the move. Because again, we got to make sure we have equipment from one to protect the employees from a safety perspective, but also to be more effective and efficient with the work. And so the $9,000, I'm not sure what number you're looking at, but there's an equipment line, I think it's $5,000 to $6,000 in their budget line is for those type of equipment replacements. That's internal for the day-to-day operation type of work.
But the equipment line item, that is general funds. Are these all general funds?
Yes.
Okay.
958. 958 is safety and security. Safety and security increase is $7,000 from 1.544 to 1.551. Again, the highlight is to provide high schools with SRO, school resource officers coverage, and to maintain alarm response and alarm monitoring for our district buildings. Again, as we spoke, a couple things that's different from the safety and security is one, as you recall, SROs are in the contract, so there's a cost associated with that. But also, secondly, we're opening the Walden School as well again as the Everett, and we have to put cameras in those particular buildings, and also monitoring services is increased because of that as well.
So this is actually personnel, though, in this. I mean, this is actually the line item for the actual individual SROs.
SRO falls under the as well because the contract increased, but also we have those buildings for monitoring that to monitor as well.
So, Maurice, I just have a question about kind of next level support for SROs. Do they have any kind of tools, that at least through our internet system, our online system, that monitor, that monitor users of our internet? So if they're, if a student is posting about threatening a school or any kind of safety issue, like, is there a system that connects our SROs and building leadership to those potential threats?
Michelle? Yeah, I invite Michelle up.
All right.
I mean, the question, do we have it that connects to SROs now? I don't think it does. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I did
Okay.
hear the question. There are absolutely systems available. They're generally done by price by user, and they're sometimes normally in the ballpark of $3 to $5 per user. So with 50,000 students, it's difficult to manage that kind of a contract. But we do.
So they're available. I would think
they are
I know they're available.
and they're
We
very
don't-
expensive. They
Yeah.
because what they do is they go through all of the transmissions that a student may make, and we will look at those. We are, I think you saw in the IT budget that we are going to student email, so we'll absolutely be looking at software programs that can actually scan, just, and generally, you don't find things in email, but, it's absolutely necessary this day and age to be looking at those kind of tools. But we do have monitoring through our filtering system. So anyone who authenticates to the district's internet services, we can pull by authentication at any time. So while it's not as proactive as we would like it to be, we can also do a lot of research, and we do a lot of research in the district based on authentication.
I would just flag and not belabor the point. Just wonder if that, given the cost, but, if maybe there's something we could partner with the city or do something where, if they have those tools, that might be available to help leverage the SRO resources even further.
Great, we'll look into that.
Thank you. And I raised it, there was an issue raised to me during our safety briefings. I'm not smart enough to come up with that on my own.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is 960, which is a human resource. Human resource acts was $672,989 in FY17. This year is $667,089. And the highlights for that for human resources to update district job classes, also to enhance our hiring portal, which is moving to a NeoGov from a current system, and then also create a HR call center. That's what we're moving towards. But when you look at the HR budget, I mean, it went down almost $6,000. But in some line items, it went up, some line items went down. For example, one line item that stands out with our relationship with the city civil service is about a $20,000 reduction from last year. However, there's other items, line items that that's went up. But overall, the budget itself went down $6,000 in human resource. This next one, 962, is a budget that falls in human resource, but this is really more contractually. And it's $230,000, and this is to cover teacher professional development, administrative professional development. It's based on contract. Last budget, well, not the last, but 975 outreach services. This is our outreach services, where we focus on our LEDE, local economic disadvantaged enterprise. And last year was actually the first year, if you will, that this particular department had a budget. I think their budget used to be about $2,500 or $2,600. And so what we're looking to do and what we've been doing in this particular is trying to have what we call employee fairs. I like to call them like the speed dating, bringing groups in and having vendors meet. Also, Ms. Wise has been meeting with our directors and different divisions and bringing vendors in to be able to collaborate ahead of time. But also, one of the things that's important that we've been looking at for the last year, and we looked at it throughout the course of the year, is software to be able to track our LED right now. Mr. Carney spends a great bit of time of pulling different files, some as many as 180,000 lines to pull in and try to do different items. And so we've met with the city throughout the course of the year to see what they were utilizing. We've looked internal to see if it makes cost-effective sense to build it internal. And so we recently put out, this year we put out an RFI, now we have an RFP out, and we'll be making a decision on a system. The reason why I think this is critically important for our LED process is that it helps us also see when payments are paid, but also some of the things as we talk to some of our vendors is when our LED is the sub, the prime sometimes hold their payments up. And so that can be a challenge. So we're looking at a system that be able to show when the payment comes in as well. So again, we'll see that. So in FY18, these funds will be a continuation of the maintenance and maintaining that system, but also looking at different strategies on how we continue to increase LED, which means through communicating advertisement when we put out bids, but also some of the things we hear in community state as well is sometimes vendors need to bring them in and show them how to do business with us. There's a lot of different things we've heard. So this is what the outreach is. And back to your question, again, about what is that percentage, we based off the district, the aspirational goal of 20%. But again, we always want to look at how we can increase that. And just give a quick note, I mean, something we've been doing differently as well is in operations, I've been tracking the legislation that's come forward. And we've had, since through March 7th, we've had 115 pieces of legislation that have come forward, and of that, and just in business operation, and of that, we're running about 23.9% of commitment of LED. And then also, just recently, if you recall, in Operation Fix It, we brought 4 pieces of legislation forward. And of that 4 pieces of legislation, it's about 43% LED commitment. And of that 4, 2 of them are 100% LED. So again, we are looking at ways to get the word out on that as well.
Real quick, in 15, it had a budget of $642.
Okay.
Was this coming from somewhere else? Was it something that was just not funded? Was it new? What's
The way I understood,
and that would help too, just to get more narrative of things like that.
I'll research that.
Yeah.
The way I understand it is the outreach was utilizing the CO's budget, the small budget the CO had, and it was coming out of that particular budget.
It switched, okay.
Well, I won't say it switched. It was one of the things in listening to the community. If we're really trying to push outreach, how are we doing outreach without dollars? And so last year we made some, as a district, and we made some decisions and trying to increase that.
So, and I hate to go back to 962, but just what was the other 175,000 in 16? If this is all based on the contract, What was that? $175,000 is what I'm curious about.
Other.
Yeah, other. What was the other?
Bless you again.
There's, in the other line, 175,000 in the FY16 budget.
Just doesn't
And it's
exist anywhere else.
zeros everywhere else. I mean, this is all professional development, but there was 175 in other budgeted. We could, what is, which one is that? 962.
Yeah, I can follow up on that and get back information to you on that.
Yeah, please, that'd be great, and then have that circulated to by email to the committee. Great.
There's no description in the spreadsheet. Yeah, there it is. Oh, contingencies.
He didn't say.
You want to say that?
So I will get that information to Scott so he can get it back out to you.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Oh, he knows now.
It was a placeholder for contingency that wasn't used.
It wasn't used?
Correct. For unexpected expenses and there were none.
Okay. 943 is the Chief Operating Officer budget. It's stayed neutral, 62.2. This budget is utilized for performance management support and professional development in any memberships. One of the things we're looking to do within the operation is develop, if you will, what I call curriculum for training within the division, but also utilize it in our succession planning. So therefore, also within the operation, we're bringing training groups in, but also secondly, to develop succession planning for those, or training for those who has desire to move up in management, so we have those trainings. So we're developing it, so I utilize that out of the operations budget for that particular reason. So, but I didn't think I need to increase. I think it's where it needs to be. So. And then also use some advertising. For example, if positions or anything need to be advertised, try to help cover that as well. Okay? So the overall budget, again, as I started out, is FY17 was 53.7, FY18 is 52.8, which is a reduction of $853,000.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Apologize, I wasn't keeping up with the.
No.
You're doing fantastic. Everyone's doing- Ours, 941, and then 942, which is board services. I think that's Roush.
I think some of these got printed out of order. I found, like when I said it didn't have 951, it was later in the
Thank you. And
PDF.
that's my watch. So.
So what's our,
I don't, Klein, how are you doing
be
today?
organized by the colors, it'd be much easier to find.
And it's just a man who's left.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm here to help explain our Department of Accountability ask, so thank you so much for having us. First of all, just so everyone knows, our Department of Accountability is made up of several different divisions. Division of Testing and Program Evaluation, Attendance and Data Reporting, School Choice, Division of the Registrar, Division of Alternative Education, as well as Division of Information Management. You can't hear me? Thanks. Next slide. Our 946 budget, as well as our entire Department of Accountability budget, the 946 encompasses 946, 94601, 94602, and I'll just go into some of the highlights with regard to these budgets so that you understand what they are. Our purchase services contract for formative assessments, that's our Northwest Evaluation Association measures of academic progress. We do that for students in grades K through 9 with optional 10, 11, and 12 testing in both math and reading. And so that pays for the entire district ADM count doing that particular set of tests. You might ask, well, what's our return on investment? What do we do with that information? That gives us a beginning of the year baseline measurement, a middle of the year baseline measurement for our continuous improvement plan. as well as an end of the year. So it allows us to see and project exactly how our students are doing in math and reading and how we might assume that they would do on their end-of-course exam or on their ELA or math proficiency test that our state gives them called the Ohio State test.
But you know, it can always change in any year at any time.
Oh, it's going to change real soon. It's going to change real soon, but we'll be ready for it. The good thing about that, Board Member Peretti, would be that even if the EOC changes or the graduation points change, we always can fall back on math to give us that beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year so that we can make projections. Principals and teachers can use that data then, and that's what we do through our data walks to actually inform what they change and do differently for the intervention so that our students can progress at a greater rate. So that's what that's for. As far as 967, our community schools go, that's kind of a sore subject with Stan and I, but basically it's a cost that we are required to pay and that we don't have a choice of. We've gone through a great amount of projections to try to get this as close as we can, but basically what this is doing is this is the community school costs that are billed to us for educating students who live within the Columbus City Schools attendance areas but who choose to attend a community school instead of Columbus City Schools.
Do you think it's important to sort of, I'm sorry, MJ, to sort of illustrate, and I don't know if this is kind of going overboard, but that it's not necessarily a loss of our students, but it's a growth in both areas. Would that be important, do you think, to sort of having something like this that shows?
I was going to ask that. I thought, just in terms of what's our, how many, our net sort of gain or loss of students coming into our district, and, how many are we losing to the community schools? Because I understood that number had gone down, yet the cost goes up. So, just
So
to
that's
explain
also,
that a bit.
sure, so that's also based on the amount of money, the deduct that we get for those as well.
Right.
One of the things you have to also understand with community schools is a student may start with a community school, but they may come to us in the, second month or the third month or the fourth month, and each of those has a percentage as well as their disability, if they have a disability, so.
It's different,
Yeah, so some of those metrics I think would be useful to, again, tell the
Just sort of
story.
frame it a little
Are
bit.
we, because right now, if I look at this, I would say Columbus keeps losing more and more students to charter schools. And yet that isn't the story of the metrics, reports that we've been hearing. So then how does it really shake out?
We can actually provide you, if you're interested, we can actually provide you the exact number of students that they are actually claiming for each quarter.
Because it's possible that both could go up. The people are moving to the district and some are going to the public school and some are going,
The first time I looked at one of these reports, I was like baffled because it would have like 123.5 students. I'm like, how do you have a 0.5 student? But, depending on the number of days and so forth, it's different. So I'll be glad to do that.
It might be helpful also to point out the different components of the deduct. So
Yes.
it's the per pupil amount plus any special ed dollars plus any economic disadvantage dollars.
That's a great point.
Whatever could be,
Yeah,
I think that would be great sort of
Yeah.
addition to enhance
And then you
this.
can see how you're building your projection and what
Yes.
pieces are moving.
Okay,
We're not
thank you.
building the projection that way. That's not how it's built. We trend it,
Yeah.
because, again,
the
the catch
people to
is,
understand.
I'm not forecasting kids in categories 1 through
Yeah.
6 of special ed. Just so you know, I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. There are X number of kids that are here. I know what the number is at the end of the year. Michelle might have more frequent data. I get it. Really, I just use data at the end of the year, and that's the number of kids that end up on the funding formula. And we use those numbers in the aggregate, and we trend that, and that gives us our change. And we look at the dollar cost per child, and that dollar cost per child that we actually calculate, total going out, total number of kids, you won't find that on the foundation formula, because it is a hybrid
Blended,
of
yeah.
all the, it's a blended number of all those, so we don't do that. We just say that blended number is going to continue because it has continued to increase. And it's either because the dollar amount goes up per child or that there's a shift in that mix. And from my end, again, it's not that I don't care, but I just trend that total number.
And I think-
And it's been
yeah.
pretty accurate over time. So I don't want you to think that it's a real line-by-line projection, because we come close enough doing the blended number.
Yeah, so it sounds like from a economic predictive, you've got a pretty good handle on
Yeah.
it, and it doesn't help you to get down to minutia. For information as to almost market share and those types of things would be informative from that perspective.
In the narrative, just to explain, there are a lot of variables included in this. It's not always the same. Just sort of some of that information would be very
Great.
helpful.
Yeah, what's population, what's rate?
Mhm.
Okay, in 968, that is our out-of-district tuition, and these are very interesting costs. So these excess costs are billings that are from outside educational organizations to Columbus City Schools. So they're students that are being educated in entities outside of our school district. We're obligated to pay for these financially, and the Division of the Registrar and School Choice actually verify the calculations for both regular education students, and we also do special education students elsewhere due to inter-district open enrollment in unique situations. So the Office of Exceptional Children, our special education department, also verifies their special education enrollment dates for us so that we can come up with accurate billing. So these costs, sometimes they're due to foster care, incarcerations, treatment facilities, those kinds of things for children that we need to take care of. And of course, there is a huge portion of them that are special education. And that is a required cost. Our last OPU, unlike our first OPU of 946, 973 has gone up a bit, but this is other support services, and I want to make sure I share with you exactly who is part of this. So the first one is 97305, that's our central enrollment. You may or may not be aware, but we have a huge undertaking in that central enrollment is going through a remodeling phase. And if you've been by the 430 Cleveland Avenue site, you've seen a lot of construction. It's very exciting. We'll actually be taking multiple other departments into the building when it's renovated. Some of those will be health services, as well as our special needs pre-K early childhood. And this will allow us to do one-stop shopping for our parents. So if you have a child that's 4 years old and you're having them tested for special needs pre-K, you come to one site, the same site that you get your enrollment done at. All of your testing and assessment is done there and facilitated there. You find out the answers there. You get to select your school. You get to move on so that it's convenient for our parents, as well as their ESL assessments are done at the central enrollment site. So we will be adding Project Connect as well, our EMIS and Infinite Campus teams to that particular location. That will allow our data to be richer. And what I mean by that is, if you can imagine, Project Connect right now is all the way down in Lexington Avenue, and central enrollment is up at Cleveland Avenue. And what happens is sometimes the connections aren't as good as they could be because they aren't communicating. And we need to make sure we help our homeless families out and get them the services they need the second that we find out who they are. So this is going to actually facilitate this. So you'll notice the increase when you look at the central enrollment budget has actually, the ask is actually for it to go up. And that isn't something that will be maintained over the next 5 years. That will actually dwindle down again. It's because of things that we did not get last year as far as our equipment budget goes, as well as outfitting the new site. So, for example, there was never anyone in the second floor at Central Enrollment previously because that was an old Army BRAC building that was just empty upstairs. And so it is being renovated. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I invite all of you to come and see it one day. And we will be able to facilitate all those other services. Project Connect will actually have a home there, and they'll actually be able to service families when they first walk into the center in a private area, so that the whole world doesn't need to know their business. So it's actually very exciting. So that's 97305. Our next part of 973 is 97308. That's alternative programming.
We do not have 05 or 08, so if we could just get those emailed
They're
to
in
us.
your 973.
I'm sorry?
They're
Within the line item? Just not broken?
They're in there.
It's in the OPU
973, they
This is-
just-
We're just looking at
She
it
just
up
broke
top.
these
Oh,
down.
yeah.
You're looking at the 20,000-foot level.
Yes.
Appreciate you
Okay,
taking this down.
all right. So 97308 is our alternative programming, and the most exciting thing about our alternative programming is out of our Innovation and Reform Committee meetings last year, one of the things that we felt very strongly with was that we needed to rebrand our IPASS program. And so instead of being a punitive measure, it's a very positive measure. You'll learn more about that very shortly. I know some of our board members are planning on doing a visit, and it will be part of our discipline report at the April board meeting. But this is just allowing us to have the online curriculum that we currently use, and it is part of Edmentum, the Plato platform. It doesn't just help our alternative programming kids, it actually helps kids all over our district because the elementaries get to use it for Study Island, as well as our high schools and middle schools use it for our able and talented services, as well as doing extensions and enrichments for our children K through 12. So the last, second to last is school choice. So school choice, you're going to see quite a decrease, and that's a pretty exciting decrease. That's thanks to Michelle Van Dyke and our application development team, as well as our program evaluation team and our information management team. This is because we're now doing our lottery applications online. And that started this school year. It has been released with great success. We actually, 2 days ago, rolled out the high school applications. Were due quite a while ago, and so the lottery was run 2 nights ago, and all the parents have already received via email their invitation to accept or reject their offers, as well as if they're on a waiting list, their exact number. They can monitor this in real time. There's no funny business about it. There's no way anyone could do something. It is all done electronically, and the app dev team, it's truly a dream come true for us in school choice. Parents have been absolutely thrilled. I've gotten rave reviews. I got a phone call last night, 10:15. Oh my gosh, Michelle, it's in my email. Can I press it now? And I said, yes, you can press it now. They were afraid that they could only do it during school hours, which I'm not sure why they thought. So it's very exciting. It has obviously reduced our costs greatly because of the online applications. Any parent that cannot do an online application, we do have other means to do, and we do have special services that go out with our social worker and guidance counselor to help parents. Right now, we're still in the elementary middle school phase of our lottery, and those are due March 31st. So if you have anyone that needs one, don't forget to tell them. And then our last section would be 97310. That is our student information management system, our Infinite Campus, and our student information management system. Obviously, that's our big price item because we have to maintain that. That's a requirement by law that we maintain our student data information system. That feeds directly into EMIS and all of our data that is required for state reporting. So that is our main mechanism for doing that. One of the things you might have heard of that's been added to this and was added at the end of last year was something called Certify. And this is a great new tool that's allowing us to look at thousands of lines of data in a very short amount of time, and then spits back an actual card, a progress report, to every principal every morning by 7:30 a.m. We also have a progress report to each of senior leadership, as well as to central enrollment. These tell them the data errors that they've made. Let me give you an example. If a student is brand new to your school, you get an alert first thing in the morning when you walk in the door if you're a principal or if you're a secretary. Great tool, because now I can go in, I can make sure that kid has a schedule so that they don't go without a schedule. Wonderful tool. Let me give you one of our internal auditors, the part that they love. So if a student, for instance, goes more than one day without a schedule, an automatic alert comes up and an email is sent, so that we can take care of the things that it took us hours to find in the past. Instead of having to run reports to find them, this is an automatic push system that allows us to be much more data rich and efficient. So, and Scott, if you want to go to my last one. So overall, here's our accountability ask and the differences. Keep in mind that the accountability section for 94601, 94602, 94603, I just want to highlight some of the reasons that has decreased, which is pretty exciting for us. So you may remember gain sharing that we had a number of years ago. This past year was the last time we had to pay that outside entity to process those files. That is gone out of that particular budget, obviously. That's why part of that decrease, as well as our online surveys. So we're moving to all online surveys for our parents and for our students for their end of the year surveys. So that money has also come out of that Accountability 946 budget. Any questions or anything I can help you with?
Very good.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
You're cranking through.
Good. Good job.
Almost there.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Really great job.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
I know that we're not all done, but on this chunk.
Okay. The big parts, the big parts were done.
Yeah.
This is small potatoes now.
Dr. Stanford, it's good to see you
Well,
again.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was about to walk out the door from those. Awesome. I am here on behalf of Dr. Good, who was not able to join us this afternoon, and he asked me to present the budget for the Office of the Superintendent. As you can see, the Office of the Superintendent is comprised of the Superintendent's Office, the Office of Strategic Communications, the Office of Legal Services, and last but not least, the Office of Budget and Financial Management. And as a part of the Superintendent's Office presentation, each of those budget managers will come up and present their individual budgets, and then I'll come back and kind of give a few summary remarks of the entire office. When we look at the Office of the Superintendent, over the next 5 years, we want to continue to provide supplemental support for major district initiatives, leadership activities, and other strategic ventures as identified by Dr. Good. We also want to deepen external relationships with our families and community partners through coordinated strategic communications, provide timely and appropriate legal advice and representation through our legal services office and with our outside counsel, provide more proactive services for grants and performance management while seeking more funding opportunities for the betterment of the district and sustaining effective programs and initiatives. And then lastly, as a part of our 5-year projection, we want to continue to expand on our new budgeting model that incorporates new tools co-developed with the Government Finance Officers Association through our partnership in the Alliance of Best Practices in School Budgeting project, which has been very, very interesting and very beneficial for our district to be a part of. A lot of what we see with our budget process has come out of that work with Mr. Gooding in that project. Okay, so when we look at the OPU 902, the Superintendent's Office, our main focus in the Superintendent's Office is on supporting the district's leadership team and addressing unanticipated consultation services. And as you can see, there is a slight increase of about $5,000 in comparison to the proposed fiscal year 17 school year, and a good chunk of that increase is in professional development and consulting services.
And what was the reason from 15, the big change from total of 34,000? Was it just coming from different departments at that point?
We'd have to get back to you unless Scott can
Get
find
back
it real
to
quick.
me.
Yeah.
And then just, if we could enhance the slide just so people know. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Got that, Scott?
Yep.
All right. And so up next to present the Office of Strategic Communications is Mr. Warner.
Good evening. So under communications, there are 4 OPUs that we'll look at. And really, it's part of our ongoing strategic plan to really coordinate those 4 OPUs together. These are the OPUs that cover our main communications and media engagement, our media technology, our Office of Customer Relations, and then also some unique coordination with WCBE. So I'll begin with our main budget, which is the media relations and communications. Some of the highlights here are recently the board approved a new contract with one of our vendors, Blackboard, which allowed us to bundle the services that we have and really enhance and expand our use of digital technology, specifically the app, the website, our auto dial system, which does phone calls, and also social media managing, which allows us to better monitor social media. It has created a platform that not only can parents get more information on their phones about their student's day, getting text messages and alerts whenever their student is absent, a grade changes, they've missed an assignment, but will also allow for integration across the platform. So principal or our communications team can create a message in one place and send it across social media, across the website, across a push notification to an app. So it really will help streamline our efforts to get our parents' messages in more places more often. You'll notice there is a slight increase in the budget here, in part because across our OPUs we have actually reduced 3 positions. And so we'll probably be relying upon some outside assistance in some of these areas, but that also allows us to get some unique expertise in some key areas. Our next OPU is the Office of Customer Relations. A small amount, but a very impactful office. This is our front line when there are questions that come in from families, from both inside and outside of the district. As families are looking at potentially coming into Columbus, our fact line is actually a great resource, and the person who mans that actually attends several of the pre-K fairs, and so we'll go to like Head Start locations and convince them why they should come into Columbus for kindergarten.
How many people are in customer relations?
So our Office of Customer Relations includes our main Office of Customer Relations in this building is 2 full-time staff. The rest of the staff is all part-time. These are retired principals and administrators who have a lot of experience with the district. Also included in there is our transportation call center, which is kind of a hybrid mix of the transportation team and my team. So that's who answers, the full-time staff that answers the calls that come in about where are buses, how late will they be. And then last year we moved Fact Line, which is a part-time position, with Barb Reed, who's handled that for a number of years and is a great resource for the district. So relatively small staff. The next piece is 971, which is our media tech. Again, this is our group that does a lot of our digital recordings, that is responsible for recording this meeting tonight. You will notice the slight increase there. Again, this is one of the areas where we reduced a position after someone's retirement.
What about the 16 to 17 year change? What caused that $180,000? I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
So as part of this budget, there was the dollars that were devoted to our Discovery Ed, which was the some online resources that moved into academic services, so out of our budget.
Again, if we could just enhance these, so people sort of understand those big.
And so that was the change from 16 to 17, is that we moved that to other areas, which made sense because that's more an academic piece of helping teachers tie in some of the lessons they can find on Discovery or online and different sources and put them right into the classroom. That's not really a communications or technical piece. Finally, and this is a new piece, we are asking the board to consider an investment of up to $1 million for WCBE. So this is this will be in 9.7 or 9.
I don't think we have it. Does anyone else have it? I don't have it.
Wow.
Pretty straightforward. There it all night.
Yeah. You know, wow.
No, we don't.
I know this is a policy issue, so. I mean, this hasn't come before the board at all.
This has not. So this is the first time that we've...
It's huge. You know, every time it comes before the board, it's, this pays for itself, it pays for itself, it pays for itself.
And so the issue here is that you're right, that the operations of the station have paid for themselves for a number of years, the daily operation of the station. We know there could be some challenges in that if a fund drive weren't to go well, or worse, as you hear now, the conversations in Washington that could eliminate some of the funding that comes to them through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
It sounds, I mean, right now they're saying that there will be none, and I guess I was prepared to say, hey, what do we do if that happens. So.
But part of our investment here is not just to look at operations. In fact, it wasn't to look at operations, but more so, we know that that station has great value. Very few school districts across the country have that. It's a great opportunity for us to promote our message. The challenge is that the equipment at that station is starting to exceed its lifespan. The main board that is used to carry the station is almost 40 years old. If the temperature changes too much in the control room, it can go out, which means our station goes off the air. At the same time, it's also outdated or dated long enough that when students come over from Fort Hays who are learning audio production on some of the newest equipment, there's nothing that they can learn at the station or do at the station because it's similar to going from using a Mac in the classroom to then coming over to a typewriter. There really just aren't the opportunities to really utilize that academic piece. And so with that, that's the ask of this particular piece, is to allow us to put investments into this unique asset that we have that does not necessarily impact, that will help prolong their operations, but more so tie it to the academics. Finally, find those ways in which we can have a cross between the work that's going on in Fort Hays and Career Technical with the work that we do at the station.
I would suggest, I mean, I think there are policy issues with this, so I'll just let it be known I have policy issues. But I think also, this should also indicate what our risks are if Corporation for Public Broadcasting pulls out or is no more. And because I was going to ask, what's that bill going to look like? And I think given this sort of, before this type of number comes before the board, I really feel like we need to consider what all of our options are and if the cost benefit is, if it's worth it. That I say that as a board member, not as a finance committee member. So I think that's a board discussion, but it's a huge ask.
53 minutes ago, Dan Milshenko sent out an email concerning a note on federal budget cuts. So since I'm a donor and I'm on their email list, there it is. And he talks about this very fact and the impact to WCPE. So.
What does he say it would be?
For the past 6 years, Corporation for Public Broadcasting's funding has been relatively flat, hovering between 421 and 445 million. 15.6 million of that was split amongst public radio stations, including WCBE. Our portion of that pool was $90,195 last year, roughly 6% of our budget.
Okay.
It's 90,000.
Fortunately for the station, the largest percentage of their income comes from donors, local donors and listeners who, again, if we have a station where the equipment fails, you lose listeners. When you lose listeners, you lose donors.
So, Don, what are we looking at? How much longer do we have?
We have a few more.
Okay.
I think we have like 10 more. The small items.
We bring them all up here, just do it all at once.
Absolutely can. Larry, it's good to see you.
Good evening.
If we get rid of this budget, he'll sue us. Thank you, Larry. Let's go.
Good evening. It's what you would expect to have the slide with the small print from the Legal Services Office. If I could take just a minute of your time, we're only one OPU, but I thought it would be useful just to explain what we do, and that a lot of what we do doesn't directly involve the provision of legal services or hiring of lawyers. What this slide reflects is different aspects of our mission. The one in which we spend the most district money is with respect to protecting assets and operations from loss, from liability, through the purchase of insurance. Because we are to a degree self-insured by hiring a third-party claims administrator and by having a fund to deal with claims, everything from paying claims to investigating them to hiring, if we get sued, hiring a lawyer personal injury defense lawyer to go into court to defend us, that sort of thing. That is roughly $1.4 million. Our second biggest function and expenditure is with respect to protecting the district's property tax base. For that, we spend money both for legal counsel, which with the increase in filings with the Board of Revision, Board of Tax Appeals by property owners has required our lawyers to do more work and hence get paid more money. Because of changes in the law, where the district used to be able to get by simply opposing with arguments a claim for a decrease in property value, we often find ourselves in the position of having to hire appraisers and having to do that a lot. And in this year's budget, I'm allocating more money, recommending a higher allocation of money towards that sort of thing. So between those two matters, that's about $725,000. You're looking at probably 85% of our budget. Other things we spend on are to, as we say here, to complete the integration of the anti-discrimination compliance function in our office. That's moved over from Human Resources into our office, and also we are adding to that a cultural competency component. And we want to do a lot of training and getting the district up to speed on that. That varies from civil rights issues for employees through Title IX, through Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and so forth. We also spend money for hearing officers and court reporters that we are mandated by law to spend, either on employee disciplinary hearings or special education hearings with the state. And finally, we do contract with lawyers to provide services to the board and district on an as-needed basis, that being, in our view, more efficient than asking the board to hire additional lawyers in-house. That way we can cover a variety of special areas that we might not work with enough to develop a particular competency. Our budget amount does not, what we ask for is essentially static, but we have rearranged a little bit. We have reduced the amount of money going to outside counsel and moved some of it into claims cost and others of it, looking at $70,000 of which, moving that in towards training in compliance areas and so forth. So that essentially, we're at roughly the $2.5 million level again for this year. And that's what we do, and that's what we think we need. Happy to answer any questions you might have. You know, people really enjoy talking about law and insurance at the end of the
Well, you know, I could talk about it all day.
Yeah.
Well, we'll excuse you too.
But I know, I don't have time to right now. So I got to go back and talk about insurance elsewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, so the next four here are mine. I'll go through these pretty quickly.
All right.
OPU 903, this is the area that we account for the, basically the ESC contract that we entered into with the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. This is funds that are used in deductions in the amount of $6.50 per student. So what we have done is we rounded this to accommodate any increase in students. So that we have that funding that is available to us at the ESC. We actually get more than this amount, but those dollars are shared with us per the contract with the Educational Service Center, that they share some of their funds with us that we have access to supplement the things that we're doing for district initiatives. That was a great move on our great move on our part.
Yes, it's a multiple of that 300,000.
Yes, it's about we're about just under $1 million that we get in total, where otherwise we would have only have had 300,000. We benefit greatly because of that contract. Okay. State and federal programs, OPU 906. This is grant procurement writing services. This is where we use some grant tracking software internally, and as well as outside assistance to help us go after grants, to find grants, to help us write them, and work through that process. And that has been extremely beneficial for us. I think one of the things I want to kind of flush out maybe a little bit more in our narrative is as I was thinking and was hearing things brought up is see some of the additional money that has come in as a
Yes.
result of that, that far, I can tell you, far exceeds this budget request here.
Absolutely.
It's been wonderful.
On the management system side, you know, we continue to have small but still meaningful comments on our audit. So maybe emphasizing that more at a later time would be good.
Non-public support, school support services, there is an increase here, a significant increase in terms of percentage, but I can explain what's going on here. Non-public school support is we are the fiscal agent, if you will, for their state funds. As part of that, for an administrative overhead, we get 4% of that in terms of revenue to the district. We are proposing to move that revenue from a separate fund into the general fund. That 4% amount more than covers our personnel and operational costs. So on the non-personnel side, we are proposing to move the purchase services, supplies, and capital expenses from the 401 fund into the general fund, and that revenue will be, it's more than the cost. So what you'll see here, but when we get in the 4 or 5 year forecast, by including that revenue in there, that's going to benefit the bottom line. Budget office, and I was laughing with Stan as I looked at this as we go through these. In our $1.4 billion budget, I can tell you that the budget office now is owner of the smallest budget request in the entire district.
Those were tears of laughter.
Whether that's symbolic or not, but it's okay, because we kind of look at ourselves as helping build a process that supports everything else that you've heard this evening. So ours is just staff professional development, professional dues, meetings, and office supplies. And these are the 4 areas underneath the superintendent CEO's budget with last year's and this year. All right, there's no questions there. We'll move over to Stan's.
All right.
Stan, you're the man.
What's your number, Stan?
969, Office of the Treasurer. Looking forward to over the next 5 years, a lot of what we do is a continuation of what we've done before, but some of the making sure that we maintain the software systems that we have some responsibility for. I think probably we're going to have an investment here of some consulting and research in that opportunity study. And also, we're going to have some initial expenses relative to some of the cash collection procedure changes that we're undergoing. And I'm really pretty excited about that because I think we'll probably eliminate that. It might not be this year, might not be next year, but once we get fully operational, we've set the goal to eliminate cash in our buildings. That's a goal. We all know that we won't get 100% of that, but we're looking at multiple methods to attack the handling of cash. Some of it through existing software that we have, like Infinite Campus, others through the acquisition and partnering with an outside firm to help collect not only data, but give us some of those electronic means to collect payments for a variety of things. So we're going to be doing some implementing with summer school this year. And piloting a program for their collection of fees. But in my budget, you can go on to the next one. In my budget, of the $13.8 million that's requested, $12.8 million of it's comprised of county auditor and treasurer's fees and outside audit fees, and transfers for the bus service, bus debt service, and the athletics contribution to the board makes to that program. So that eats up about 93% of what I budget for, and those are set by outside entities. Other than that, of the remaining $900,000, it's software maintenance and enhancements to our ERP system, or Munis, and Kronos, and things like the opportunity study, our courier services, preparing financial reports, things like that, some outside services there.
So maybe I would just say like 30 seconds on, for our community members on what the opportunity study is.
That's an item that has morphed from an audit recommendation that we have procedure manuals written for both payroll and accounts payable, and some other recommendations about very specific technologies, if you will, for instance, payment of bills by EFT. And as we started getting these little smaller pieces, we ended up combining them all together and say, well, we ought to take a look at the entire function and how my department even sometimes touches some other areas, and look at those to see if there are, and the word came up, opportunities for efficiencies and enhancements. And so this is going to be a pretty, to borrow a word from you, I've added to my vocabulary, fulsome study of how the operation works. What will fall out of that will be recommendations and things like the procedures manual. And we are actually starting, we've just this afternoon, going to work with a firm to help us wrap our arms around. It's kind of like making a plan to make a plan. They're going to help us wrap our arms around the scope of all of this so we can write an appropriate RFQ to actually solicit that work later on.
Thank you.
Was that more than 10? That was more than 10 seconds. My apologies.
I said 30.
Oh, okay. Well, it's good you put that parameter on. So that's my budget.
Questions? Internal audit. Carolyn.
The pressure's on, Carolyn.
The closer.
The OPU is 970. And I developed a 5-year plan a couple of years ago, and I've been sharing with the board how we're moving along that plan. So it's very similar to what we saw last year. We want to continue to improve our professional practices as demonstrated by upward movement on the internal audit capability model and the internal audit data analytics and continuous auditing maturity model. These are both, one is put out by the Institute of Internal Auditors, the other one is put out by, I want to say, Price Waterhouse or some other large firm as far as what, an optimal system looks like. So we're working our way up that system. And then also we will dedicate more resources to fraud prevention, detection, and staff training. Our budget, the highlight is from the IT audit area, which we do outsource. You will see a decrease from 107,000 down to 95,000. And the bulk of that is because in FY17, the current year, we are doing a risk assessment just in the IT area. It's not something that we're going to do every year, so that decreases our spend in that area. The next outlier is I am proposing to have a peer review done on the department. Once again, that's something that will not happen every year. It's required to happen every 5 years. We've been in existence since 2001, so we're well overdue. So I would like to get it done this year, knock it out the way, and then you won't see this type of expense until another 5 years. So
That's a lot of money, that's 6,000.
I'm sorry?
For the peer review.
I always love it when the auditor's getting audited.
Those are who audits. You ask the question, who audits the auditors? That's how we get audited.
In fact, I'll volunteer to pay for it. Just kidding.
Don't say that, Stan.
Yeah, we.
I'm glad to have laughter during my career. That doesn't happen at all. But this was also a recommendation that the auditor of state had made as they kind of look at our operations. They didn't have any major issues with how we do, our procedures and how we report out and our independence. The one, key takeaway was they did recommend that we would have a peer review. We're ready, so, I'm recommending that we go ahead and get that done this year and then get on that 5-year cycle.
Absolutely.
Great exercise.
Is that my last slide?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's my budget.
Good job. No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Roush, bring up the last two.
All right. The last two OPUs are the Board of Education and Board Services. Board Services also includes Policy and Government Affairs, which is my position. In the interest of time, we'll just go ahead and skip through this. I know you all have that in front of you. Board of Education budgets, we kept it flat. We did increase a little bit for Neola because their costs have gone up, but we were able to save those dollars in another area, so we're able to maintain flat funding for the board going forward this year. Board Services, we do see an increased funding here. It is a $60,000 increase, so it does jump out at you. It would be for a contract for advocacy services. Currently, we're able to receive some of those services through the Ohio 8 Coalition. And while we've been able to receive those in the past, there's some question about whether or not the Ohio 8 will be able to continue to afford those services or the level of those services going forward. We don't want to lose the momentum that we certainly have. From a government affairs standpoint, I do the city, I do the county, I do the state, and I do the federal. And there's a lot of moving parts and pieces at any given point in time. And so this would enable us to maintain that momentum and bring somebody on board who can really help kind of plug those gaps. As I know Mr. Peretti can attest, sometimes there are multiple hearings going on at the State House at the same time, and I've not yet found a way to clone myself. So.
And what was the change from 15 through 16, 17 to 18?
I know the change from 16 to 17
Purchase services, was it just
16 to 17 was largely flat. I'd have to look at 15 here. The last contract we had was for $60,000 going back historically, which is why we used that particular dollar amount.
Yeah. Just something to enhance that 16, 17 year change.
So if you look in fiscal year
narrative.
15, the purchase services was 87,000.
Yeah.
So we dropped significantly over the years until we got to 18. So we went to 8150, then to 7600. So we were able to reduce actually that particular line from 16 to 17. But the contract would have been in there in fiscal year 15.
Right.
So ACS was who the contract was with.
And we ceased to have a contract with them in 16, 17?
We did cease to have the contract with them.
We just have that enhanced a little bit, and that'll be good.
We can
On the
do
slide.
that.
I think Mary Jo's got a question
Yeah,
about
I want to go back to
941.
941.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to ask if you would, is purchase services just Neola? Or anything?
Purchase services would be predominantly Neola, but there's also some additional funds in there should the board want to contract for facilitators, for example. So there's some additional dollars there for facilitators.
I'd just like to have this broken out.
Okay.
So, in the dues and fees, what's dues, what's travel, what's registrations, what's then other,
The dues are for 3 organizations, the Council of Great City Schools, the National School Boards Association, the Ohio School Boards Association.
That makes that 65 in total.
Yeah.
And then if we could break out the 18.5 on Neola and whatever else that would be.
so isn't 65, does that include like conferences and that, does that include?
No.
That is a different line.
Where is that one?
Where does board travel go?
It'd be under
Give me
purchase service.
Under what? OPU?
941.
No, it's under Board of Education, it's under the 941.
So it'd be in that 47,000 pot.
Yes.
So in that $47,000 pot,
Which
we
one?
have 18,000 for purchase services. And
941.
yeah.
So if you look under
So it
the
would be-
purchase services, it's in there. It's a separate line within the purchase services.
Okay.
So just
Just
break,
Yeah.
just break that out
Break
because
that
the board
Give them the
hasn't,
spreadsheet.
I will be happy to provide that to you.
we appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions
Surprise.
on that piece? Well, wow. It's amazing that we got through it all. And if I remember correctly, we're not able to get it through last time. Where were we?
Days to hours.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yes.
fantastic that we were able to
come a
get
long
this, and it shows all the work that, you guys have been working on, and everyone who's probably not behind us anymore. Yeah. Has done.
They don't know that there will be a test on what's in my operational unit, and since they're not here,
Oh, it's excellent job, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So,
Motion to adjourn?
yeah, before, real quick, just as long as we get some of those corrections that we had to enhance these slides, get those on the website, and then also wait for the public to give comment on this. I want to make sure that's on there. And then any other questions?
Just one comment. Where you've done the summaries for each of the sections, and so you see the overall numbers, seems like leading with that, and then a real quick chart that shows, the 7 things that contribute to the most significant additions or subtractions. And I think you can almost...
That's great.
And then drill
Yeah.
down there, because that will give you just a great summary of where the major investments, within each of the areas, the big 3 areas or whatever.
And then as we get through all these
It'll be a
suggestions,
great summary.
if you can notify us when they're up and when those are adopted.
And
Great
I'll
job.
just say, I think of everything we saw here, the couple, one to point out that we'll have some capital issues that will, some of the first stuff, that'll come out when we talk about capital. But the second was, the biggest thing that popped out for me was that the board needs to have a policy discussion about WCBE.
We'll do that in a different form.
Yeah, but I just say we need to figure out a way to do that, because that's sort of the biggest delta of this whole.
so let me put this in a little timing perspective for you. What you saw tonight were 18 numbers. What we have are all the numbers I need for the forecast. The forecast, as you mentioned, we're a little bit upside down. The forecast has to come next. We'll talk about that here in April. We'll do it in May. So the numbers that are in here are going to go into the forecast. Now, you're going to have this time to talk about what you ultimately, if you want to make changes, if you decide, for instance, you just mentioned the policy thing about, say, WCBE. You've got between now and the 1st of June to have those discussions, because it's in June that you adopt what you just saw. But I'm going to come to you, and all that's going to be in there. So
In May.
in May. So you'll adopt a forecast with it in,
With these.
have these policy discussions. If you change your 18, then that's when we realign it for later on, okay?
I would not, to include $1 million spend is also a policy decision on, long-term continued investment. And I just think we haven't had that discussion yet. So I wouldn't put it in. But I think we should, as the board has to have it, so I'm pointing it out to our chair so he can communicate it on, but I don't know why that would be reflected in it. I'll leave it to the budget director, but I think that's incremental costs, one thing, but that's a huge investment.
And this is a one-time cost, correct? A 1-year cost of $1 million for equipment?
It's the capital, and we've had those discussions internally. So we're prepared to go either way.
I just think that's a big board discussion before we would put that in.
Agree.
Is that any different than any other of these, of this proposal, though? Like everything else is sort of proposed in a fashion that this is what the administration is suggesting to us. Isn't it now our, as we move forward, yes, I agree, we do need to talk about it.
Well, then, if you're putting it forward and you're saying that's what we should do.
And we can pull it out and add it back in at a later date after the board has that discussion. That's something that
Well,
it's easy to
having it
do.
in there is saying that that's what you think you should do.
Right.
So, that's all, I just put it out there.
We'll talk more about this offline between us, and then we will talk to the administration and within the next few days, so we know whether there's some direction, and then we will let the committee know sort of what our temporary idea is until we move forward completely.
Okay.
That way, just right now, I agree it is an issue that we have to talk about, but for sake of what we need to do process-wise, I agree. We could put a hold on it, absolutely, but I think we need to have some discussions on it before that happens.
But I'm just saying, there are ramification issues, and I'm saying, you really want that? I'll leave it at that. Can I move to adjourn now?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn,
Oh.
please. Or no?
Can I just-
Carolyn's got one thing she's
sorry,
going to
Carolyn.
say.
Just real quickly,
Yeah.
the district's financial statements were released this Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
I believe and I know they're definitely on the Auditor of State's website, and there might be a link on our website if you want to just go out there and see, how we did. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I would just point out, I went to look for them. It was very difficult to find them on the website. On the CAFR. I was looking for I looked for the CAFR. It was hard to find the CAFR.
Thank you very much, everyone. Move to adjourn?
She did
I'm out.
twice.
Well, second, all right, so second. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say same sign. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate them. You're a soldier.